Hi team, welcome to my session on Coffee with Prab, and today we're going to discuss about CISM, your last minute guide. I can assure you one thing, it is a first kind of a video on YouTube which talk about all the 4 domains based on the news labels. My name is Prab and I'm taking a CISM from last 10 year, and when it comes to success rate in last 10 year I maintain 99%. And for more information you can check my LinkedIn profile, and if you're new to the channel, do subscribe to the YouTube channel and click on the bell icon to make sure you should not miss the future videos on a similar topic. So without wasting a time, let's start with the first part. Thank you. Okay, so in CISM, we have a total 4 domains, and full form of CISM is Certified Information Security Manager. Now, when talking about the CISM, so we have a domain 1, which is called Information Security Governance, because governance help you to build the foundation. We're going to discuss in the further slide what is governance. But for your information, governance is all about set of operations. Now, set of operations are there which help you to conduct the information security risk management, because when you want to implement any kind of a controls in the organization, you have to do risk management. Based on risk management, based on that, we can define the controls with the help of information security program, because information security program include all the controls what we have, and make sure the controls are working effectively and all that. If any issue comes in the control, with the help of incident management, we can manage. And whatever the gap we identify, we report back to the same, to the board. Now this is the complete cycle we have. So governance is a set of operation. They're doing a risk assessment to identify gaps, threats, issues, and based on that they organize the controls and information security program. And once they implement the controls, any kind of a program, any kind of a challenge they basically face, they can handle this challenge with the help of incident management process. And from the incident management process, we get the reporting and everything by which we can able to improve the controls. And that is how the CISM has organized the 4 domains. Okay, so in CISM, people say you have to think like a manager, you should not think like a practitioner. So what is the definition of think like a manager? See, whenever you answer any questions, the first thing is that whenever you answer, make sure you have to keep one thing in your mind, is you have to focus on business goals. I'll give an example. Now, according to you, what is the best firewall? Need your suggestion in the comment box. Some people will say Palo Alto, some will say Fortinet. But the best firewall is the one which meets the business requirement. That is the mindset we need. So normally we have a 2 type profile in the company. One is called as a practitioner and one is called as a professional. So practitioner is the one who implement the solution, and professional is the one who manage. Okay, every organization start with strategy. Then we have a tactical plan, and then we have an operational plan. Now CISM guy is basically come on this side, professional. He understands the business, he understands the requirement, he understands the regulatory, and based on that, he will do the risk assessment and suggest the control and get the control implemented from the operation team. That is how things works. So professional is the one who understands the business, analyze the requirement, and practitioner is the one who implement the solution. So in the CISM, you have to think like a professional. Okay, there is no one solution which fix all the issues. You have to understand that also. Understood. That's basically the most important part. Now, as I said, when it comes to CISM, okay, you have to focus on business goals. That's the first priority. Business goals, like always align your answers with the organization objectives, such as protecting assets, ensuring compliance, and more important, enable the business continuity. By the end of the day, you have to maintain the CIA. But always remember one thing, ultimate goal of any solution is to achieve the business objectives. Is it clear? Second, we have a risk-based thinking. Risk-based thinking is very important. So you have to prioritize risk management by identifying, assessing, mitigating risk in a way that you can able to balance the security need with business operations. In layman term, I can say any kind of initiative you're doing in the organization, when you hire anyone, when you fire anyone, you do risk assessment. So risk-based thinking you need to have in the system. Let's say example, you're dealing with multiple incidents with the limited resources. So how you handle that? You'll do first impact analysis or risk assessment to prioritize what is important and what is not. The third important thing we called as a strategic alignment. Okay, so you have to emphasize on how the information security supports the organizational strategy And you also need to check the goals rather than focusing only on technical controls. So that is the first important thing you need to understand from the exam point of view. So that is called as a think like a manager concept. The second important thing, you have to, you can say, you have to analyze the scenario holistically. How? So you need to consider stakeholders. That is your first priority. So you have to evaluate the scenarios from the perspective of employees, executives, customer, and regulators. Okay, that's a one thing. Second is long-term implications. You have to choose the answer that reflect the sustainable and scalable solutions rather than short-term fixes. Example, like ultimate goal of risk management is not to identify risk, but to reduce the risk to an acceptable level, right? So that's called as a long-term implication. The third most important part is called as a compliance and governance. So you have to incorporate all the regulatory requirement, governance frameworks and everything. Okay. Next is called as a, prioritize the actions based on impact. Very, very important. Now here we have a most important thing is required is critical thinking. So you have to, assess which actions provide the greatest value, which reduce the most critical task. You have to also need to consider resource management, where you consider cost effective and resource constraint when you're selecting a solutions. And then we have an incident response. When you're handling the incidents in the exam questions, focus on minimizing the business impact and restoring the operations efficiently. Ultimate goal of incident management is to reduce the risk to an acceptable level. That's true. So that you have to check how you basically prioritize that. Okay. Always remember, avoid all the technical over premises. Okay. Example like, or over emphasis, sorry. Like for example, detailing firewall configuration is not required. More about focus on how firewall enforce the policies. Second is when you're discussing the encryptions, emphasis will be role on the achieving a confidentiality objective than the technical implementations. So these are the basic steps is required for your understanding that you need to follow. Okay. Now in the exam, these keywords are very important. The first keyword is best. Best use according to a particular situation. Example like you have created a security policies. What is the best way to communicate the policy? So answer is awareness training. But when you're created a policy, the most important step is approval of management. So difference is that best is focus on best appropriate and strategic solutions among the several valid options. All 4 options will be great, but still we have to select the one which can cover everything. On the second part, the word most is there. Most highlight the critical priority and highest impact. Example like, what is the most important outcome of security governance, or what is the most important requirement of successful security governance? The answer is basically senior management approval. Without senior management approval, we can't do anything. Or on top of it, one more important is called as a aligned with the business objective, because if it's not aligned with the business objective, management cannot approve that. So keyword is most. Or second option is, in the month of December, most of the Indians or most of the people in India go to Goa. So that's called critical priority, highest impact. But best to be stay at home according to the problem. Another keyword is basically called as a primary. Primary mean what is the first goal of these initiatives? Okay, like what is the primary goal of your watching this video? Learning? No. Learning is one of the goal, but ultimate goal or primary goal is to pass this exam, right? So when you're doing any initiative, you have to understand from this initiative, what is the primary goal of incident management, reduce the impact. Primary goal of problem management, track the root cause. So primary mean from this particular initiative, what is the first thing I will achieve? Then last is called as a first. First we use in that case when you're talking about sequence, like what is the first step in the risk management? What is the first step in the BIA? What is the first step in this? What is the first step in that? Whenever the question talking about sequence, it means the question talking about first and all that. So you have to select answer accordingly. Sometimes what happen is options are also combination. Example like, what is the first step of the risk management? Answer is identifying risk. But one also option is there is reduce risk to an acceptable level. Now this option is an outcome of the question, not a sequence, but this option is the sequence of the question. So this is how you need to validate the functions. And for more information, there is already a video I made on the CISM Think Like a Manager. Do check that. Okay. Ultimate goal of this video is to give you the visibility about what is covered in CISM. So that's like primary objective of this video is not to teach you how to think like a manager, but what is in CISM. So there is another video I have. You can check that video. Okay. So let's move to the first domain, which is called as a domain 1. So before we start with actual thing, let's understand the basics first. So what is governance? Okay, so governance is like a, governing something, or it is basically a framework. Okay, it is a framework for rules, practice and process that guide how organization is managed and controlled. Now if you take an example of country like India, let's say example of India. Okay, so we have more than 25 states, right? So we have more than 25 states. Each state has their own belief system. So country like India, country like Pakistan, country like Bangladesh, country like US, UAE and all that. So each and every state, each and every country has their own belief systems. And there are some different resources we have, like people are there, nature is there. So everything need to be managed properly. And to manage them, they need to create a rules. Okay, they need to introduce law. They need to manage them appropriately. So they will form one system. That system is called as a governance. If you take another example, okay, with the same context of India, in India, what happened is we have a ministers. So we appoint ministers. The minister create a law. They create a department and then they manage them to create a value for us. That is called as a governance. Even when your parents create a rules for you, introduce a processes for you. Okay, every day morning you have to wake up 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock you need to have a breakfast, 11 o'clock you have to go to school, come back. So they're creating a policy which is called as a law for you. They're creating a process how to follow that policy, and by end of the day they're trying to create a discipline to give you the better life. Same like company, in order to manage that company, their resources, everything, they create a rule. They create a practices and processes that guide how the organization is managed and controlled. I want to show you one video, okay? So you get a visibility why governance is important. So if you see this video, you'll get a better visibility. He just directly jump into the car. No parking, nothing. Breaking a glass. So you can see the way of taking taxi. It is against the law. Wherever you park, you jump and you break the glass. No one care. Even it is mentioned no helmet. He's still wearing a helmet. And now you see the entry. Tan tan tan. So that is a perfect example of bad governance. Now understood? So if they have a system, if they have a law, if they have some policies, then nothing will be happening like that. So that's why I call governance ensure accountability, transparency, alignment with the goals and objective. So it is like governance, which is a process of governing or overseeing the control and direction of something. Okay, if country creating governance, country governance. If parenting creating a rule for their kids, that is called parenting governance. So now question is, why governance matter in the organization? Okay. So the first part, why governance matter? So why? Because the first biggest reason is direction. See, when you're talking about governance, governance set the organization goals. Okay. And their strategic directions. Just like family, you have a family. So family is something which set the goals. Okay. They set the goals. They set the the goals, like they want to planning a vacation, so or they want to save for a new car, or making sure kid do wells in a school. So governance in an organization also set the goals and directions. Okay, so if you take example, this is the bank we have. So this bank is doing offline business in Delhi or Melbourne. Offline business means there's nothing online. Everyone has to go to bank and avail the services. Now the bank understood they want expansion, they need to introduce IT. So they have given instruction to CIO, plan the IT function. Then CIO get the information from a CISO, ensure the security. All these part of a strategic direction. So the family have a strategic direction to save money, spend quality time together, or prioritize education. Same like the company basically have a strategic direction. Okay, this year this plan, next year this plan. And if the organization has an appropriate strategy and everything, that shows a good governance. That's why governance matter. Second is called as an accountability. See, it ensures your decisions are made responsible with a clear and accountability at every level. That's why if you notice in your company, you have a RACI matrix. RACI matrix. So someone is responsible, someone is accountable, someone is need to be consulted and informed. Okay, so in a family, same, everyone has a responsibility. So parent might manage the finance, older kids might help with the chores, and younger kids are responsible for their schoolwork. So governance ensure everyone know their roles and it can be counted on. So if anything happen, for instance, a family can quickly see who was supposed to do what, hold them accountable. So they have a visibility. So accountability is very important. The third important thing, risk management. In my further slide, we discuss in detail. So governance structure helps to identify, assess and control the risk. Same like your family face risk too, like managing expenses, staying safe or preparing for emergencies, right? So governance in a family involve planning for those risks, like saving for unexpected expenses or having emergency contacts or teaching kid about safety. And this way risks are minimized. Now let's say example, I'm getting every month salary of $10,000. Suppose I have a kid, I don't have a kid, but suppose I have a kid. Now he said today he need a PlayStation. So I have to see my finance and I will see, okay, can I gift him a PlayStation in this budget? And if I gift him PlayStation from this cost, can I able to run my entire house? Understood? So here I'm doing a risk assessment because I don't want if tomorrow buy and I have to face the consequences. Same like company when they go for new project and all that. So project can give reward also, but it can also give a liability. A good company is the one, a good governance is the one we do risk management, because ultimately we have to reduce the risk and prepare for the surprises. And last is called as a governance called compliance. Why governance matter in the organization? Because of compliance. So like example, my father has set the rules for me. So I have to abide with that rule. So I am using a word called comply with the rule. Understood? So family follow the rules, right? So compliance ensure we adhere to the law, regulations and internal policy, which protecting the organization from fines or reputational damage. So compliance here, like family follow the rules or maintain the harmony to ensure everyone well-being, like bedtime, limit on screen time or taking turns with responsibility, right? Like on the dinner time, no phones. So we have to comply with the rule. Rule was set under the governance. So because if you see the word GRC, governance, risk management, compliance. So during a governance, we set the rule and now we have to comply. If we don't comply, there is a risk, right? So during a part of a building process, they have ensured no one will basically take a phone during a dinner time. And this is basically, we have to comply, right? So compliance basically ensure you adhere to the specific things. Okay, now question is overall why governance matter. So in this example, you notice, right, without governance, family might struggle. Okay, if you don't have a direction, the family might struggle with, unexpected goals, confusion over the responsibility and conflict around a rule. And by setting a goal and ensuring accountability, we can prepare for risk and maintaining a rule, and the family can build a healthy, organized and supportive environment, just as a governance does for the organization. That is why governance matter today in the organization. So let's discuss the next part, a key element of governance. So the question is, what are the key elements of the governance? The first important element is policy and standard. Everyone has to wake up on time. It's a law created by, it's a policy or it's a rule of my house. Same like every system must be protected with the password. That is a policy. Policy is nothing. It is like a law of the company. Same like policy which is created for my house, it's a law of my house. But the standard is what time we have to wake up. Like policy say that we have to wake up on time, but question is what is the time? 7 a.m. is the standard time. It is for me and for my cousin. So the first important component, which is a foundation for any company governance, is policy. So if you want to check the maturity of any company, first ask for the policy. Okay, so governance includes setting up the policy. Okay, and standard that define the expected behavior and operational practice. And these policies helps to establish what is allowed, required or prohibited within the organization. Same like I said, in family, policy are like house rules such as no phones at dinner table or bedtime at 9 p.m. So these rules set clear expectation what is allowed or what is not. And they help everyone understand what behaviors are expected to maintain harmony at the home. That is why any kind of an activity you want to introduce, policy is the first step. Second important element is called roles. So governance define who is responsible for various activities. So there should not be any surprises. Okay. And this is something we document as a decision within the organization. And this ensure the accountability and clarity so that everyone understand their duties from a senior management to the individual contributor. So every family member has a specific role. Like parent may handle the finance, grocery shoppings, older kids will taking care of the trash or doing the dishes. And so role make sure everyone know what they're responsible, and this reduce the confusion and making the family run smoothly. That is why in your company you have a RACI matrix. Third is that whatever the policy standard we have to follow, it is followed by the procedures. Okay. So on one side, we are saying we have to go on bed 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. So what is a process? What is a procedure? Or I have to set 8-character password. So what is a process? What is a procedure? So governance outline the procedures that ensure consistent, okay, reliable, and repeatable outcome. So these processes are especially important in the critical areas like risk management, compliance, and quality control. I'll give an example. So I have appointed a DR coordinator, disaster recovery coordinator. He created a procedure or she created a procedure. Now in her absence or in his absence, someone can follow the procedure blindly, and that is called as a good governance. So procedures are the one which generate the same results. Consistent results, like procedures, like processes in a family, like routine such as getting ready for the school in the morning, or each steps is organized. Everyone wake up, eat breakfast, brushes their teeth, and get dressed. So these routines helps the things to ensure in a predictable way, so no one miss the school bus or forget their lunch. That's a very important part. The next thing is called as accountability and oversight. So governance provide the mechanism to monitor the activities, okay, which is other to the policies and all that. And this oversight bodies like board of directors or governance committee, they review the report. Because if you ask me, the overall function of governance is three. So we have a governance part: evaluate, direct, and monitor. And this is my operation team. When they work on that, this is basically oversight by the board. So board is the one who always get a reports on regular basis, because by that they get a visibility, and it is very important to have that. Okay, it is very important. So same like, we collecting our audits, we doing an audits, we review the reports, and by this you can hold the people accountable for their actions. That's why when you face any audits and all that, auditor give you the recommendation and then do the follow-up. Okay, that's an important part. So accountability in a family mean making sure everyone does their part. So parent check if cleaning has been done properly, or if homework is completed. I'm sure you also experienced that. So that's an example of oversight. Next important thing, a good governance is the one where whatever the strategy you have set, whatever the initiatives you have set, it is aligned with the business goals. For instances, governance might ensure security practices align with the business goals. So that good security governance is the one which align with the business goals. Or family might have a goal like saving money or vacations. So making sure everyone eat healthier. So governance helps to align daily activity with these goals. Understood? So that is something is part of the function. So these are the key components we have. Now let's understand how the overall organization works in the functions. Okay, so we're going to discuss now type of governance. So that give you the better visibility. See, when we're talking about organization hierarchy, so this is how the actual organization works. So the first part is called as a CEO. Okay, now before going to discuss this, I want to discuss the hierarchy. So as I said, governance is a set of operation. Okay, so under the governance, we have an important element. Let me change the color. Okay, so under the governance, we have first thing, which is called as a corporate governance. Corporate governance. Okay, and corporate governance is the one who set the goal. Okay, they are the one who set the goals, and they are the one who set the direction. Hey guys, we have to start new business, we want to go digital. So that is defined by the corporate governance. Now who is part of corporate governance? Board and senior management. They are the one who set the goals. So let's say example, we are doing offline business and now we want to do online business. Okay, that is basically my goal. So we have decided, because right now we're doing offline banking. So I want to start banking services in entire Melbourne, and I want to do in Sydney, example, or I want to do in Delhi, or I want to do in Mumbai. So what happened is corporate governance said that, okay, increase business, increase sales and everything. So then it is giving a direction to the IT team, which is called as a IT governance. They create policy, they create procedures, they introduce AI, ML and all that. So this is basically driven by the CIO, Chief Information Officer. So corporate governance given a direction to IT governance. Hey guys, we want to go digital now, support digital. But make sure this digital should be secure. We have a one governance which is called as a information security governance. They create their policy, procedure and all that to protect the business and protect the IT and protect the business. So that's why I say CEO is the one who set the organization strategy. We want to go digital. Fine. CIO will ensure how the digital can support the goals. CISO will ensure how the security can be achieved that. Then security manager create ISMS and all that. Then security admin is there who create a SOC SOP. And this is how the security technical team operate on the local level. So that is how the entire hierarchy works. So to understand better, let's understand one by one each and every statement. Okay. So first let's discuss about the corporate governance. So I already explained you in the previous slide what is corporate governance. So foundation of GRC is corporate governance because they are the one who set the thing. So if you see the hierarchy according to COBIT, corporate governance is the one who follow three things: E, D, M according to COBIT. E stand for evaluate. So they evaluate the legal requirement, regulatory requirement, compliance requirement, customer requirement. In my further slide, we discuss how we arrange the sequence. So they evaluating the market condition and they understood, yes, we have to go digital. Okay, we have to go digital. That is basically my need we have. So corporate governance understand that particular thing, and then they basically giving a direction to the CIO. Okay, so CIO is the one who drive the initiatives. So now CIO got the direction. So now what happened is CIO based on that create a strategy. They create the tactical plan, they create an operation plan. And then, so we have a evaluate direct. CIO is the one who will do the planning, building, run and monitor. But parallelly, we also have a CISO. CISO also doing a planning, building, run and monitor to make sure it can able to secure the business and provide the report. And this is basically called as a EDM, evaluate, direct and monitor. And CISOs and CIO doing a PBRM. They're creating their strategy that's called IT governance. They're doing their information security governance, and corporate doing their function that's called corporate governance. So corporate governance set the strategic objectives and it guide the ethical behavior, oversee the compliance with legal regulatory requirement. So their major focus will be on the board oversight. They want the executive to be accountable. They want transparencies, and they are actually accountable for anything what is happening in the organization. So, but the challenge is basically balancing profitability with the social and environmental responsibilities, because they have to run the business also, but also respect the culture and everything. And they are the one who set the regulated landscape, and they follow the top-down approach. Without governance, we can't implement anything. Remember that without governance, we can't implement anything. So that is basically called as a corporate governance. Now, second is called as a IT governance. They are the one who align the IT strategy with corporate objectives. As I said, the bank has decided they want to go online, right? Now, they are the one who creating an IT strategy to ensure how can they go online. So they are the one who managing a risk associated with the digital transformation, and their focus area is how to allocate the resources, how to create a performance metrics, risk management, and integrate with the business goals. But challenge is basically as the technology get changed today, you can see there is a need of AI, artificial intelligence, machine learnings and all that. So they have to see how can they optimize the IT investments and everything. Now next is called as a information security governance. See, in some companies, information security reports to IT. In some companies, information security directly report to the board. So here the information security governance ensure the protection of information asset through the policy, standard and framework. And their focus area will be data protection, risk assessment, incident response, compliance, and everything. Challenges as things getting changed and all that, growing balance is there. So how to comply with legal regulatory, how to maintain security is the most important part. See, when you talk about information security, under the information security, we have a cyber security. So difference is cyber security is protecting our digital assets, and information security protect all type of assets. All type of asset. I repeat again, information security protect all type of asset, where cyber security protect digital assets. If I have a laptop, it has a data that will be protect under the cyber security. I will keep this laptop in the physical locker that come under the physical security. Okay, and in the information security, we have a 3 goals: maintain the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Like I want to make sure whatever the information we collect, it will be protect from unauthorized disclosure. It is a user who decides this information should be available to one person, to this person. Apart from that, if it's available to anyone else, it's a breach of confidentiality. Whatever the information we provide, it must be accurate. That is called integrity. And third is it must be available whenever it required. It is same like, right, you're sharing your secret with your friend and he told everyone. Will you trust him? No. So it's a breach of confidentiality. You ask for some advice and he gives some wrong advice. Will you trust him again? No. That is the integrity. He said, okay, whenever you need, I will be available. And he was not available when you need. That is availability. So that is how the governance, risk, compliance, and information security works in the organization. Now, this is the summary, okay? So here you can see corporate governance set the strategic objective for IT. Okay, they are the one. So first is set the objectives. We also define the compliance requirement that we need to comply with the legal regulatory requirement. And then they basically expecting a IT risk assessment report from IT, but IT get this assessment from the information security governance. Okay, information security governance and IT implement the security controls. Information security governance report to CIO on the IT security metrics. They do the risk assessment end to end to make sure things are working correctly, so that they get a reports on regular basis, and they also report the IT performance. So this is basically the overall type of governance. Now we're going to discuss about a day in a life of a GRC analyst. See, in different company, the people does different role. Okay, in some company, GRC analyst mean they're doing an audit work. In some company, GRC analyst is the one who does the risk assessment and the implementation of a control. So let's understand the day of a life of a GRC analyst. So you get a visibility what kind of a role he does. Okay, let's move to the next part. So information security governance, I can say if you're preparing for the CISM, domain 1 is very important. I know it covers only 17%, but that is very important. Because when you're talking about the domain 1, okay, it's very important for you to know the basics. 17%, so approx you will get 25 questions from this. And that is the best thing about ISACA. What they commit, they follow. If they say they give 25 questions, they really mean it. So this module represent the combination of 25 questions, okay, that you need to know for the exam. Okay. Now, before I want to start this section, I want to discuss the basics of that. So I don't want to directly start with the session. So first I want to discuss about what is information security. But as I said, when you're preparing for this CISM, give proper attention to domain 1, because that is the base for the rest of the domain. Now here, when you're talking about information security is always an outcome of confidentiality, integrity, availability. Before we jump into CIA, I want to discuss the basics of information security. So we have two things here. One is called InfoSec, and then we have a CyberSec. Information security and cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is a part of information security. So you can say information security is the umbrella. So if I say I want to protect all type of assets, then the answer is information security. But if I want to protect only digital assets, digital assets, then answer is basically cybersecurity. So let's understand with the example. So we have a phone here. This is my phone. Okay, in the phone, we have a WhatsApp chats. I have an image and all that. So this is basically protect with the password, 4-digit PIN. That is called a cyber. but I place this phone in a physical locker and I lock the phone with the particular key, physical key. That is called as a physical security, which part of information security. Now, when I join as a CISO in any organization, let's say example, I join bank. Okay. Now they're saying, Prab, we want to create a value for the business and we are expecting information security create value for us. Definitely we create a value for the business. How? We make sure whatever the transactions are there, it is only available to the respective customer. So what is the meaning? It means we're maintaining a confidentiality. Like this is the transaction. It will be only available to the respective customer who basically own that account. And if this information go outside of these two things, so this is the bank, this is the customer, and if it go to any third person, it is a breach of confidentiality. And how we achieve that? With the help of encryptions, access controls and all that. Second is whatever the transactions we are doing, it should be processed without any error. So we have to ensure the transaction should be done in a proper manner. So we maintain the hashing and all that. And third is that whenever the user want the website to be available, it must be available. That is called as availability. And forget about that. Today we use this confidence CIA tried in a real life also. Example like this is my friend and I told him, buddy, this is a issue and don't tell anyone. And he makes sure he will not tell anyone. But one day what happened? He told some people and that break the trust because he doesn't maintain the confidentiality. Second thing is I asked for the friend, okay, yeah, how's your marriage life? You know, is the marriage is good and all that. So he said, yes, his marriage is heaven and all that. You should also get married. So I trust his advice and I follow the advice. And what happened is I truly appreciate, but I'm just giving example. So after that, I don't get that friend. So that is basically called as an integrity. He told me, Prab, whenever any issue happen, I will be available. I said, okay. And when I need him, I called him, buddy, there is a fight happen. You have to be there. And after that, he vanished. That is called availability issue. So same like in the organization, if you fail to maintain the confidentiality, if you fail to maintain the integrity, if you fail to maintain the availability, then it will impact the business. So your information security outcome is maintain the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And that's why we say for educate protection, for information asset, information security strategy is essential. And that is the process we need to understand here. Now this is the process, but before I jump into the process, I want to explain you with the example. See, when we're talking about any organization, right? So we have a vision, then we have a mission, and then we create an information security strategy, ISS, information security strategy. You need to understand the sequence, okay? Information security strategy. Then information security strategy backed and supported by the information security policy. And then information security policy include in the information security program. In the information security program, the first thing we do risk management. And based on that, we enforce the controls. So this is the sequence you need to know from exam point of view. I repeat again, vision of the company, mission of the company. Then we have an information security strategy. Based on information security strategy, we create an information security policy. Policy will be backed and supported by the information security program, because any kind of a program you want to introduce, it should be backed and supported by the policy. So program, when we create, first thing we create a policy for that. By end of the day, policy is a part of program. Policy included in the program, but to build the program, you need a policy. And when you're implementing a controls, all the controls come under the program, which is include your incident management, patch management, everything part of an information security program. But when to implement, how to implement, which come with the risk management. And you can see here, organization has objective. So organization has decided they want to go. So right now the organization doing a lot of offline business. They're doing offline business, but now they want to go global. Okay, they want to go global, and that is only possible when they do all the business with the help of website. So now when they want to go by website and all that, okay, so the vision of the company is to provide digital services, sustainability, and mission is basically we set for the internal stakeholders. So here we have a vision, here we have a mission, and now we're creating an organization strategy. Organization strategy is increase business, increase customer and all that. And then further, it is divided in two parts. One is called as a goal maintained by the CIO, and one is maintained by the CISO. And you are here. you are here. CIU will ensure cloud need to be there, technology need to be there to support the digital business, but make sure the business need to be run in a secure manner. Make sure the technology need to be run in a secure manner. This is basically we have a CISO. So CISO is the one, first thing what he do, he will create an information security strategy, which cover your security objectives, like protect the information, maintain the trust and all that. And based on that security strategy, we develop the comprehensive policy. And that is where we have a security policy. Policy talk about the controls, and that controls is part of a program. Can you see that? Program. So that something is basically there, and program will be implemented with the help of risk management. So that's why we say organization inform the information security manager. Information security manager create information security strategy that is basically cover your objectives. And then based on objective, we create a policy, and policy is basically define the controls for the security program. And want to implement all the controls, we need to do with the help of risk management. You can see risk management provide the feedback. Based on that, we update the program effectiveness. We need to inform the information security manager, and information security manager inform the management. That is how it works. So in this entire structure, information security governance play a very important role. Okay, so before that, I want to discuss one more important point which give you the better visibility. So this is the blank screen, but it's okay. See, when we're talking about, as I said, we have a vision, why we exist in this world, that's called vision. We have a mission. Mission is basically the path, and then we talk about the strategy. This strategy is called as an organization strategy. Okay, I will discuss further in detail all this pointer, but right now I'm just covering a high level. So organization strategy is there, and then organization strategy is further divided into the IT and information security strategy. Information security strategy driven by the CISO, and IT strategy driven by the IT, CIO. So this is called as a information security governance, this is called as a IT governance, and this is called as a corporate governance. Okay, so that's how it works. So ultimate goal of information security governance is to create a value. Okay, ultimate goal of information security governance is to create a value. So there's a question can be asked in the exam is, what is the purpose of information security governance? Establish an effective information security program that align with the enterprise goals, protect assets and support the compliance. That is the primary purpose. So if you get any question talking about what is the purpose of information security governance, is to make sure it should support the goals, protect assets and support the compliance. Second is the focus will be of information. So purpose is different, focus is different. Focus is basically what you're going to do. So information security governance has an outcome is risk management, because it is not possible for me to protect all the assets with the same value. So we have, with the help of risk management, we have to prioritize. Remember that, okay? We have to prioritize. And through that prioritization, you can able to optimize the resource. Same like, it is not possible for you to read word by word, line by line, and remember everything to the last day of the exam. So what you do, you will create a strategy, and in the strategy, you create a program, study program of 2 weeks. And in that program, the first thing you do risk management. What is important, what is not. So with the help of that, with the limited resource, you try to optimize that. And that limited resource you implement, you do the performance measurement of that. And more important, you integrate with the enterprise business. That is the purpose. That is the focus of information security governance. And by doing this, you're aligning the enterprise goals, protect the asset and support the compliance. So what is the CISM context? You have to remember. So as a CISM context, one thing you need to understand here is information security program success rely on the strong alignment with enterprise overall governance, leadership support and structure approach. Without leadership support, you can't implement information security governance in the organization. So always remember one thing, without leadership support, you can't implement program. Without leadership support, you can't implement the policy. Without leadership support, you can't implement any solutions. But one important requirement to get the leadership support is that in your information security strategy should be integrated and aligned with the business objective. If it's not been aligned with the business objective, you can't get an approval on your program. Always remember, okay? That's a very important part. Now, another important thing we need to understand here is, yes, this diagram, it's very, very important for you to know, okay? So this is the hierarchy we have, okay? Now here you can see the first part is So here, this is the steps which talk about how to implement the information security in the organization. Okay, it's very important. Now, first thing, and I'm going to explain with the one use case. Okay, so first thing is basically called as a determine the desired outcome. See, when you preparing for CISM, this is your current state and this is your desired state. Desired state, you want to clear the exam. Current state, where you stand. So it's not necessary you have to start from zero. You can do gap assessment, and based on that, you can able to prioritize. Okay. And this is the same thing we're doing. We're determining a desired outcome. So let's say example, the leadership company is there of ABC, or aspirants identify the high level outcome they want to achieve. And these outcomes are like including the safeguard of customer data, meeting compliance requirement, and reduce the risk of data breach. Compliance requirement is GDPR. So what aspirants did, aspirants here, the outcome is like they want to achieve the 100% outcome of compliance with GDPR. They want to achieve the 0-day vulnerability, and they want to ensure the availability of a services. Okay, so that something is the desired outcome they are expecting. Now for that, what we did is we defined the security objectives. Okay, security objectives. That something is part of the function. Now when we're talking about the security objectives, is like, you're translating the outcome into the measurable security objective. On one side, you're saying you want to achieve the 100% compliance, right? So now you will define your security object, like implement the encryption, okay, deploy 24/7 SOC, conduct the monthly vulnerability assessment. That is called define the security objectives. And then you will see what is the current they have. Okay, so see here, my goal is I want 100% compliance. Okay, I want a 0-day vulnerabilities to be achieved. Like I don't want to have any kind of vulnerability, and I want to ensure uninterrupted services. So that is my outcome. Based on the outcome, I've created security objectives like implement the encryption, deploy 24/7 SOC, okay, doing a vulnerability management, create a policies and everything. That's a security objective. But do we have currently? And this is basically I'm doing a determine the current state. So I will assess the current security posture to understand the gap between the existing and desired state. And for that, I will do gap assessment, identify what they have, and based on that, I will identify doing the risk assessment. Okay, like no encryption is implemented, security monitoring is manual, and vulnerability assessments are performed once a year. Okay, I will do the deep gap analysis. So I will identify the gap between the current state and desired state. For example, the gap number 1 is no encryption. So we required implementing a full disk encryption. No 24/7 monitoring. So we required setting up the outsourced SOC. And third is perform the infrequent vulnerability testing. So we required increasing of the frequency. That is basically perform the gap analysis between the current state and desired state. And then I will develop the strategy to close the gap. This is how the plan how to address the identified gap. So like encrypting a sensitive data, partner with third party, increase the vulnerability scan frequency to monthly. That's something is develop the strategy to close the gap. And then I will create a roadmap for that. I will break down the strategy into actionable step. Like I will do research of encryption tools, encrypt the sensitive data, onboard the SOC provider, or automate the vulnerability scanning. And then finally, I will define and develop the program with the governance policy. Like I will establish the ISMS, define the incident response procedures, and develop the third party management policy. And then I will manage the program with the help of metrics. Your entire CISM is around this area only. Okay, the entire CISM is around this area only. So we talk about lot of time GRC, governance risk management. So governance is a set of process by which we set the policy and ensure with business objective. In my previous section, you have seen how the governance work. Then we have a risk management. Risk management is all about identifying risk and everything so that we can able to treat the risk, reduce the risk to an acceptable level. And finally, we have a compliance to the legal, regulatory and organization standard. So let's say example, in the previous video, same example I've said is company, when you join any company, you create a process, you're creating a policies, that's part of governance. If you want to run any country, you need to create a law created by the ministers, and that shows the good governance. Parents creating a law, parents creating a rules for your kids, that's the governance, right? But to follow the process, it's not possible for me to do everything. So I will do risk management. So governance do the risk assessment to identify, prioritize so that they can able to comply with the legal regulatory requirement. Now, when you're talking about in the ISACA, they follow COBIT, and COBIT differentiate governance with management. Okay. Now here, before I move to that, I want to discuss the COBIT example. So in COBIT, we have a one thing called EDM. Okay, and governance. So, and another thing is called as a PBRM. Now, what is the meaning? Let me explain you. So when I say EDM is driven by governance. Governance means corporate governance here. And PBRM is by the management. Management is CIO and CISO. So in COBIT, they actually segregate the thin line difference between the governance and management. So in layman term, you can say governance is all about evaluating the need of the stakeholder, evaluate the need of regulatory, giving a directions to the CIO and CISO, and CIO and CISO based on the plan, build, run, and monitor. And what are the metrics we have, we provide to the management. So this is one thing you need to know from exam perspective. What? So governance is the one who set the goals and management is the one who focus on execution. So as a CISM context, you need to understand the distinction between the governance and management. So in layman term, you can say governance is like a corporate governance. Management who run the show. Management is the one who manages that particular show, CIO and all that. Okay, that's a very important part. Now, when you're going for the CISM, it's very important for you to know the rules. So one thing you need to understand is these roles, board of directors. One thing you need to remember, they are the ultimately accountable for anything, whatever happening in the organization. So any question talking about who is ultimately accountable for security, answer is board and executives. Remember that. Information security manager is the one who develop, communicate, and manage the strategy and policy. He's the one who developed the policy. He's the one who developed the strategy. But board is the one who approve those policies because it's a conflict of interest. Third is called the data owner. So every company has a business owner who bring business to the organization. Even when you're sending an email, when you're creating a document, you are the data owner. So data owner ensure data security policy align with the organization needs and legal requirement. Now there is one more thing we called as a committee. Okay, one is called as a committee, and one committee you need to know from exam point of view, which is called as security steering committee, SSC, security steering committee. Now the difference between the committee and the board or management is committee is temporary. When we executing any project, for that we create a committee. Committee is basically the combination of the representative from the boards and operation team. So in the CISM, committee is very important because they do the joint. So example, like security manager creates a policy. He submits the policy to the committee. Committee has the team of all people, technical, functional, business. They will share their viewpoint about the policy from all the vertical. See, one thing is that if they review and approve, it's a very good policy. If they approve the strategy, it's a very good thing because we're getting a viewpoint from all the people. So many organizations form the security steering committee consisting of stakeholders from many of the organization business units, department functions, and principal locations. And they may have a variety of responsibilities. Okay. So if they're approving anything, it's a good thing. Okay. Because they're getting a viewpoint from everything. So that's something you need to know from exam point of view. Okay. Another important thing, we have a data owner and we have a data custodian. Let me explain with the example. So this is your airport. Okay. So you carry your baggage and you're traveling from Delhi to Goa. So you tell the airline team, I'm traveling from Delhi to Goa and my bag has some fragile items. So you are the one who own the bag. So same like you are the data owner. Airline team are the one who ask about what is in a fragile and all that, and you inform them. So the airline team is the one who manage that baggage on behalf of you. So they are the data custodian. So same like in the company, security administrator, backup administrators, they are the one are the data custodian. And they protect data based on a data owner. Data owner is the one who follow the policy. That is how the entire company works. But when you're talking about implementing a security governance, the most important factor which drive the information security governance is culture. Culture is very important. Now, what is an example? You join one organization. Okay. There is no culture of reporting an incident. You join one more company, example, where you can see everyone is reporting the security issues. You join one company where you can see no one follow the policy seriously. And there is a one company who follow password security policy seriously. That's called the culture. Culture is the foundation for any organization. Okay. You have a best security solutions, you have a best security policy, but if there's no good culture, they will not follow that. So organization culture impact the effectiveness of information security, especially in the area of teamwork, norms, and communication. So very important, you need to understand the biggest parameter which impact security is culture. So as a CISM context, CISM professional must ensure the roles are clearly defined, okay, and the culture support information security initiatives. So if you get any questions talking about what is the most important support for information security initiatives, the answer is culture, because culture include your leadership support, culture include the people and everything. Okay, now let's move to the next part. So as I said, if you want to build information security governance in the organization, the first step is create a strategy. Strategy is very high level. Okay, let's example, this year my strategy is I want to implement SOC for 2024. I want to implement VAPT in 2025, 27001, 2025. So I'm talking about the high level requirement. Okay, that's something documented in the strategy. So, and a good strategy is the one which align with the business. So we follow some principles. Okay. So the purpose of strategy is to define the objectives, define the goals and roadmap. One thing you need to remember. Okay. And the key objectives of the information security strategy is strategic alignment, risk management, value delivery, and resource optimization. And as a CISM candidate, you should know this. So when I say I'm implementing information security in the organization, or I'm saying, okay, this company has a good security governance. Okay, good security governance. How can you say you have a good security governance? So outcome of a good security governance is, or outcome of a good, strategy is that the first most important part of your strategy should be aligned with the business objective. So if they give you a question is, what is the primary objective of security strategy? Option A, strategic alignment. Option B, risk management. Option C, value delivery and resource optimization. By end of the day, by achieving this, you're achieving this only. Ultimately, your information security strategy should be aligned with the business objective. And for that, what we have to do is we have to do risk management. See, on one side, your business is saying that with the $2,000, you have to protect everything. A good strategy is the one which aligns with this requirement. But for that, the first thing we have to do risk management. Risk management is very important because with the limited cost, you have to implement the security. And by doing risk management, I'm creating a value delivery. I'm ensuring the security investments benefit the business, right? And last, we can able to do that with the help of optimization of resource. So you can see that outcome is to align with business. For that, we do risk management and that create a value. Why? Because with the help of limited resource, I can able to manage everything. So outcome of a good security strategy is this 4 or 5 outcomes. So a good strategy, as I said, a good strategy is the one which clearly communicates its value, include the metrics for performance measurement, and it should be aligned with the business. See, when you're creating a security strategy, you have to also understand the legal, regulatory, and contractual requirement. Okay, so one thing is that compliance. Compliance is nothing, it's all about act of abiding. I'll give you an example, okay. Let's say example, this is the office which is in India. And I highly recommend you can check my one governance fundamental video, which also give you good visibility about the governance. So let's say example, I join as a CISO. So we have an office in India, okay. They're doing a support EU operation. So they're doing a support in EU, European Union. One of the country they're supporting is Germany. Okay. So they have a sales team in India. So need your reply in the comment box. If you are doing a business in Europe, what is the primary privacy regulation you have to follow? The answer is GDPR. So you need to follow GDPR. In GDPR, so many articles are there. Is it possible for you to follow all the articles? The answer is no. Okay. And if you tell the sales team, hey guys, have to be follow GDPR, they will basically run away from the company. Because in GDPR, we have more than 25, 30 articles. But what will happen is we appoint the DPO, Data Privacy Officer. He will interpret the GDPR requirement and then he tell the CISO, okay buddy, we need to implement this and that controls. So we implement this and that controls on the second floor. Like USB access is blocked, camera is enabled, no one carry a smartphone. So by creating a policy, creating a strategy, this is part of information security governance. Okay. you implement the controls on the second floor. By that, you comply with the GDPR. Comply is nothing. It is all about act of abiding. So if this is the company and you're saying you have a good governance, how can you demonstrate? You comply with certification, you compliance with ISO, you compliance with everything. So that's called as an outcome of a good governance. Okay, and ensure the governance with the help of security functions. So compliance is all about act of abiding. Okay, privacy law is there, GDPR and everything. It's very important. The difference between privacy and secrecy is privacy deal with individual information, secrecy deal with organization. Sometimes when you're creating a strategy and all that, you also need to consider third-party management. You have to contract. So there should be a contract with third party, and your contract should include data protection requirement clauses and audit right. One thing you need to remember, whenever you're dealing with the vendor, make sure service level need to be documented and right to audit clause should be there. So both option is there, select service level, because without service level, you can't do audit. Is it clear? So whenever you're dealing with third party vendors, make sure in the contract add the service levels. Without service level, it is difficult for you to ensure the quality, security and everything. Regulatory standards we have to follow. So as a CISM context, you need to understanding regulatory impact is critical, because based on regulation only you create a security strategy. Okay, now let's say example is you need to implement the encryptions on the border network, but because of regulatory you can't intercept the data. So your regulatory requirement impact the strategy. So if you get any question around what is the biggest impact the security strategy, the answer is regulations, because we follow regulations. Regulation will not follow us. Understood? So based on the information security strategy, we create a policy, and policies we have to do based on the risk assessment. See, any kind of an activity you want to do, you do the policy first. Okay. So policy is the foundation. We'll discuss in the further slide what is policy. Okay. So when you're building an information security program, so what is the first step? You create an information security strategy, then you create a policy, and then you create a program. Same like ISMS, you know, ISMS is a program, right? But the foundation of the program is ISMS policy as per the clause 5. So your program include multiple things. The first thing is called risk assessment, risk management program, security policies, awareness training. All these things, incident management program, all these are part of our information security program development. But the sequence is first we do risk assessment, identify issues. Based on that, we identify we need a controls. To implement the controls, you create a policy first. That's why if you notice, policies are created based on a threat profile, which is signed by the management and understood by the employees. One example is, in my previous scenario, I said we need to comply with GDPR, right? So we identify some controls required for GDPR. So for that, first we need to create a security policies. Hey guys, no one's supposed to browse social media. No one's supposed to carry USB drives. So here what happened, we create a policy based on the threat profile. Threat is failed to comply with GDPR, emerging of threat regulations and all that. And then I communicate that policies with the help of awareness training. Awareness training is all about modifying the behavior. Ultimate goal of awareness training, I'm going to discuss in the further slide. Ultimate goal of awareness training is to make the employee aware about the responsibility. So the primary outcome of the security program is to realize of strategy, goals and objectives. Now to implement the program in the organization, the first thing we need to understand the components. Okay. So we define the steps. We include the people, process, technology, because by end of the day, PPT work together to create a value. And we also need to see what are the constraint and potential risk we have. So we follow the architecture. Architecture is a roadmap. Okay. It's a structured framework which support the strategy and implementations. And one of the framework we talk about is SAPSA and TOGAF, because we decided we need to implement the program in the organization, but how to do that? So one of the common framework we follow is SAPSA. Let me show you an example. Okay. Now here you can see the example of SAPSA, but before that, let me explain you one thing. See, SAPSA is an architecture, okay? Now what is architecture? Architecture is called as a logical framework, okay? Now what is that? Let's say example, this is your current state. Okay, you're not going to gym, you're not doing any workout, you're not having a proper food, neither you sleep on time. And desired state is that you have to go for 5K marathon. You have to go for 5K marathon running. Problem is that based on the current state, it's not possible. So you decided you need a strategy, you need a program, but strategy is like, be healthy and all that. And program is achieve this running and all that. So you decided you have to go gym and all that, but how to do this? So you need to organize this blocks in a sequence. And this is where you introduce the architecture framework. you introduce the architecture framework. Okay, first in the morning I will do gym, then I will have a work, I will have a food, then I will do yoga. So I'll organize this in a block, which help me to arrange in sequence. So this timetable is called as a architecture. Same like you want to construct a house. What is the first step? So you need a doors, you need a balcony, you need a sofa. So by following this architecture, you can get a visibility about what is the resource, how much money we need to spend. So one of the architecture is SAPSA. So they say, okay, you want to do something, first understand the business perspective. Then you have a conceptual architecture, then you have a design, then you construct, then you introduce solutions here, which is called component, and then you manage them. So SAPSA and TOGAF are one of the frameworks that we follow. Okay. Don't worry, in the exam, you don't need to know each and every component, but you need to have visibility. What is the name of an architecture or risk-driven architecture or security architecture which align with the business? And SAPSA is basically one of them. And there's a dedicated video I made on SAPSA. If you want to really understand detail, you can check that. So SAPSA and TOGAF is important. So as a CISM professional, you should adapt to create a roadmap that factor the organization constraint and align with the security architecture. Another important thing in the program, we have a data classification. See, it's not possible for me to protect all the data with the same value. So we basically understand the value of the data, and according to that we protect. Same like, your wardrobes in your house, you have a two type of clothes. One cloth that you wear for anniversaries, events and all that. And one cloth you're wearing in a house and all that. Definitely you give more attention to the things that you buy outside. According to that, you will spend money also on those clothes, right? So same like you have a PI data and you have a business data, you have a operation data. Let's say example, for you, PI is very important because if you don't protect PI data, it can have a big impact. So here we decide the based on a value. Value is toward the regulation. Okay. So data classification, when you classify, the most important factor is how much it value to the business. So, and this is basically where I want to add my CISO advice. When you're talking about any organization, we only have a three type of data. One is called regulated data, one is called business data, and one is called as an operational data. By end of the day, any company you take, this is the only classification we have. Any data which relate to regulation come under regulated data. Your trade secrets and everything will be part of business data. And operational data is like, logs and everything. Ultimately, we cannot able to give attention to same all. So we classify and categorize, but the most important parameter based on which we classify is value. Value is also two type, qualitative and quantitative. An ultimate goal of data classification is to ensure the data should receive the appropriate level of security. Okay, and classification is the foundation for any data management. So data classification, when you're talking about here is, okay, proper classification underpins the data protection effort, and CISM professional need to ensure the classification align with the business standards. Okay, so we have some standards that you need to know, like COBIT is there. COBIT is a framework. Okay, so you need to understand what is the difference between the framework and standard. What is the difference between the framework and standard? Framework is a logical structure. Standard is a requirement. First, we adopt the framework and then we go for standard. Let's say example, I want to implement information security in the organization. I don't know anything. So I will adopt this is called NIST framework. NIST. This is called CISM framework. And one of the framework requirement is you need to have a password management. Now here, based on my experience, I can say password should be 8 character. But I'm looking for the universal acceptance. So in that case, NIST also have a standard 800 particular thing. So they talk about 14 character as a minimum secure password. ISO say that 8 character is a secure password. That's called as a standard. Same like I want a TV. That is a necessity of my house. That is called as a framework. But I want to go for LG TV. That is a standard. So framework can be customized, modified as per the business requirement, but standard come with the certification. Standard come with the mandatory requirement. Standard is just an English word. It means uniform across the organization. Okay. So COBIT is a framework which align the IT with business. ISO 27001 is a standard for information security, and TOGAF is a framework. So and that's what I said, if you want to implement the program, you have a zero visibility. You can start with the framework first. So by applying a framework, you can able to align the business objectives and everything. So as a CISM candidate, you must know how to apply the frameworks effectively to develop the governance models that support the organization resilience. That's a very important part. Now, next important thing, we talk about the information security matrix. Definitely, once you implement the program, you have to measure the program. Okay. And for that, we introduce a matrix. Now, if you get a question in the exam, what is the ultimate purpose of matrix? I repeat, what is the ultimate purpose of matrix? So answer is measure the effectiveness of information security strategy. That's it. Ultimate goal of matrix is measure the effectiveness of the security strategy. And the key metrics are incident response time, compliance rates, vulnerability metrics. It's very important. You have to regularly track this progress. And according to that, you need to improve the program. That's a very important part. Is it clear? And another important thing is metrics are essential to demonstrate the success of security initiatives. Example, like I've conducted a security awareness program last week. So before awareness program, 50 people report incident. After awareness program, 70. That's good number. That matrix helped me to give the value. Okay, we conducted awareness session. Before awareness session, we have a 50. And after awareness session, people reporting more incident, which is called 70. So this is how I'm demonstrating the success of anything. Okay, so one thing you need to remember is ultimate purpose. The primary purpose of metrics is demonstrate the effectiveness of information security strategy. And metrics are demonstrating the security initiatives. That something is there. Now, if you want to convey any kind of a security solutions to the board, the one document that we prepare is business case. This is a very important topic for the exam. Business case provide the value. Let's say example, I did the risk assessment, I did the gap assessment, and I identify I want a firewall. Now I cannot simply go with the risk assessment results to the board. So here I will present the business case. In business case, I will include the risk assessment data, value propositions, and everything. And this is the exam question. So risk assessment is part of business case or business case part of risk assessment? No, risk assessment is a part of business case. Business case is a document that you submit to the board. You demonstrate to the board like why security is important. So one important talk about the business case, clear rationale for security investment. Now, what is the element in business case? Define the problem, current state, financial implications, risk benefit analysis. Again, I'm telling you, business case should be simple and easy to understand, and you are a subject matter of information security. You know how to present the facts. So any document which proposes security investments, the answer is business case. Same like now you're looking for the CISM training, right? So you presenting a business case to the board. See, we want to go for CISM training by this. We can able to manage this kind of a resource. We can able to manage this kind of project. By doing this training, we can increase a business from this particular parameter to this particular parameter. So business case providing a justification of your security initiatives. Okay, that's a very important part. So as a CISM context, you should often create a business case to justify the security spending. And a good business case is the one which aligns with the business goals. A good business case, a good business security case is the one which aligns with the business goals. If it's not aligned, they will not approve. Always remember, is it clear? That's an important part of the requirement. Okay. That's a very important part of a requirement. And when you're talking about the business case, so then we move to strategic planning. So when you talk about strategic planning, we have some activities for the continuous, like we do the awareness trainings. Okay. The difference between awareness and training is awareness modify behavior, training modify the skill. Okay. So we have to make sure we have a skill development task. As I said, I was in an impression that, okay, 8-character password is a secure password. So I was using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But in the awareness, I got to know it should be combinational alphanumeric. I was an IT consultant moving to security. So that is where I attend the CISM training, which modify my skill. One thing you need to understand, every company has a skill metrics chart. Skill metrics chart. So this is called a skill metrics chart. Okay, which maintain the skill set. But one is that we have a skill set. But do we have an educated person on that skill set? And if yes, what is the level? So that's something we check with the help of competency score. Skill is something what you need to carry to perform the task. But do you have that level of skills that come from the knowledge? What is the level of knowledge? We assess with the help of competency chart. Competency chart talk about how much we have a knowledge about the skill. And we have an inventory, which is called skill inventory. So project manager check the skill inventory. Then from the skill inventory, he check how many people are there on that competency of skills, and according to that, they allocate the project. So as a CISM context, you need to understand here is, as a CISM context, you need to understand here is that continuous education strengthening the human element, because who is the weakest link in the organization? People. People are the weakest link. Okay, and that can be addressed with the help of awareness training. So always remember, from exam point of view, the most effective control for social engineering, password sharing, is security awareness program. Because even you have a strong password, okay, but you're a victim of social engineering, then there's no point of having that solution. So most effective control against the social engineering is awareness program. Okay. Now another important part we need to discuss is risk management process. Okay, so next part is risk management. We're going to have a dedicated module on the risk management, but in the domain 1, they talk about basics of risk management. Risk management ultimate goal is reduce the risk to an acceptable level. But when we're talking about risk management, it is driven based on 3 factors: appetite, tolerance, and capacity. And the one thing which is variable in nature is tolerance. So let me explain with the example. So risk capacity means maximum risk the organization can handle. Risk appetite is the level of risk organization willing to accept, and risk tolerance is the acceptable deviation from the appetite. Very, very important. Same statements is very important. Okay. Let's take example. I'm withdrawing every month salary, which is $1,000. That is my salary. That is a maximum salary I'm getting in a month, and that's a maximum I can invest in a month. That is my risk capacity. Okay, I decided from the $1,200 on my training. It's not fixed, but it is the thing which I define my boundary. That is my risk appetite. And the current training I'm taking, which is a $150, that is my current risk tolerance, which I'm okay to lose. But there's a one new training is coming, which cost me $250. In that case, my risk tolerance going beyond the appetite, but thankfully it is not going beyond the capacity. Okay, so I will analyze everything before taking this final call. Okay, so when we're talking about risk treatment, which is called acceptance, transfer, mitigation, avoidance, all these factors are decided based on the risk capacity, appetite, and tolerance. Always remember. Okay, so the maximum risk the organization can handle. So in this case, $1,000 is the maximum risk. $200 is basically my risk appetite, and $150 is my risk tolerance. Okay, so it can go above the 200. So by end of the day, risk tolerance define my function. So if you are a startup, okay, you don't have anything to lose. So in that case, you have a high risk tolerance. But if established company, in that case, you have a low risk tolerance. Okay. Same like now when you started your journey in cyber, you have nothing to lose. So you have a more risk tolerance. You take more risk. But when you have a commitment, liabilities and everything, you'll think twice. So if you have a low risk tolerance, you're okay to invest more money on the controls. When you have a high risk tolerance, in that case, you're okay to accept risk compared to accept the controls. So anything go beyond the capacity, you avoid that particular business. Let's take another example. The speed limit set by the government is 200. The maximum speed you can go to 1000. The current speed is your 150. That is again the parameter. And you decide everything when you start your car from the house. Is it clear? You want to go airport, you know, in 1 hour you cannot reach, even you go by 1000. So you drop the idea. So that's how you prioritize the things. So in risk management, we have risk identification, analysis, evaluation, treatment. Is it clear? So one thing we need to understand here is CISM practitioner play a vital role in balancing a risk by ensuring it aligns with the organization risk, tolerance, and capacity. And based on appetite, we take the calls. Always remember one thing, practitioner is the one who assesses the parameters and based on that, it take a call. Okay, so we have to avoid some common governance pitfalls. When you're implementing a security strategy, we follow some challenges. The first is technical complexities, which can limit the understanding and adoption of new security and everything. Second is sometimes budget constraints are there. I want to implement new things, but we have a budget constraint, and because of that, it's difficult to us to implement. Third is conflicting business priorities. That's another important concern. So as a CISM context, you need to understand is you need to aware about the challenge which help the CISM professional to proactively address and security buy-in from the leaderships. That's a very important part. Now we have some other challenge also, like complexities and budget constraints. So here you need to balance the cost and effectiveness of security. You need to conflicting the business priorities because ensuring security doesn't hinder the business operations. Okay, and third is without senior management, we can't implement anything. So that's a most important part. Okay, it's a most important part. So if you get all three options, select high level sponsorship, because without leadership support, you can't implement the information security governance in the organization. Now next is called periodic reporting. So regular updates on security posts is very important because that bring the transparency And for that, you need to have a proper communication, because without communication, you cannot get the approvals. So strong communications skills are crucial for CISM role, as they often needed to be articulate the complex security issues in a more effective manner. That's a very important part. So this is all in the domain 1. Okay, let's move to the domain 2. So now we are moving to domain 2, information security risk management. When you're talking about information security risk management, 20% is testable from the domain 2, and approx 30 questions we can expect from domain 2. 30 questions exactly. Now, when you're talking about risk management, information security risk management, ultimate goal of risk management is to reduce risks to an acceptable level. So if you get any question on topic around what is the ultimate goal of risk management, answer is ultimate goal of risk management is to reduce the risk to an acceptable level. Now, one thing we need to understand, we have to understand the process. So before we move, we need to discuss high level what is risk management process. So let me explain you that. So under the risk management, we have a first thing called risk identification. Second is called as a risk analysis. Third is called as a risk evaluation. And fourth is called as a risk treatment. So we have a 4-step process. Now, if you take an example of risk identification include identifying asset, identifying threats, identifying vulnerability. Under the risk analysis, we have 2 steps, qualitative and quantitative. Because if you are talking about risk identification, threats are something called as an action that you perform, and vulnerability is called as a weakness. So this is my server A. Okay, and the server is configured with weak password. So there is a possibility hacker can exploit this weak password, and through which he gain access to the system. So hacker is a threat actor who are performing an action. Weak password is a vulnerability we exploit, and through which we gain access to the system and access to the data. Access to data is basically a risk if someone can gain access. And whenever we calculate risk, we use a formula called likelihood and impact. Likelihood, probability of happening, and impact is if it happened, what is the impact? So in the risk identification stage, we identify asset, we identify threats, we identify vulnerability. But we need to understand the level of impact. And there is a 2 way to calculate the level of impact, qualitative or quantitative. Qualitative, where we use high, low, medium, and quantitative, where we use the numbers, SLE, ALE, ARO. And then that results we're going to evaluate. We evaluate the results with the capacity, with the appetite, and with the error tolerance. And based on that, we decide to take a treatment. We'll discuss in the further slides. Ultimate goal is to reduce the risk to an acceptable level. That is the ultimate goal we have. Remember that. Now here we're talking about the risk identification. So when you're talking risk identification, it's all about identifying all assets, threats, and vulnerability, including a third-party risk, and address the potential impact. Now we have a different type of threats. We have internal threats like insider, poor configuration, lack of awareness. And external threats are called as cyber attacks, APTs, and natural disaster. Let me give you another example of threat and vulnerability. Let's say example, you have a weakness, you cannot say no for anything. You're a very introvert guy, you cannot say no to anything. Now some relatives use that an opportunity. And one day what happened, they say, see, we bring a marriage proposal for you. And because you have a vulnerability that, okay, you cannot say no to anything, default, you accepted that. And what was the impact? See, likelihood will be high. The relative will come to your house and they can propose you any marriage proposal and all that. And if you say yes, the impact is basically high. So that's called, the threat is an action. Vulnerability is a weakness. Okay. So internal threat, insider threats, poor configurations and all that, external threats, cyber attacks, APT and all that. And for the emerging threats, we have a APT. APT is something very, very important. You should know from exam perspective, advanced persistent threats. Okay. So they basically hack the servers, they hack the network and maintain the persistent access of the organization. So what is the learning we have from the CISM context perspective? So when you're talking about from a CISM context perspective, as a CISM, it is crucial to have an in-depth understanding of the threat landscape and proactive in identifying and mitigating new risk. Okay. So first step in the risk management is risk identification. It's all about identifying assets. Okay. and assess the potential threat, and using a historical to create a risk scenario. Now, second is step called as a risk assessment process, where we evaluate the potential impact and likelihood of each identified threats, including assets, threat source, vulnerabilities, and operations. We do the two level of assessment here also, vulnerability assessment and threat analysis. Vulnerability assessment is all about identifying the vulnerability. So let's say example, this is my system A. This is my system B. So we identifying the weak password, we identifying known configuration. We running a tool, the tool maintaining a signature of known vulnerability. We apply those signature on the system to identify the vulnerability. Okay, and from there also we identify the threats. So vulnerability assessment, identifying weak points, but exploiting the vulnerability, gain access to system, that is called PT. So we also do threat analysis, where we examine threats that could exploit the vulnerabilities. That something is there. Moving to ahead, we also talking about risk register. Very, very important. This is something we create in risk identification stage. It is a centralized document which document all the identified risk, asset, threats, and control. And it's a live document, live. It is a live document that we follow throughout the risk management and the entire operations. Two major benefit of risk register is that it is a centralized document, so all team can see this, and according to that they get a holistic view about the risk. Second is basically we create this in a first stage, which is called risk identification stage. So risk identification stage itself is a very critical, because risk identification assessment process is a foundation, and CISM are responsible for establishing and maintaining a comprehensive risk register. It's a live document which maintain and document all the risk, and all departments see that risk register and take the unified decisions. Now, vulnerability and control deficiency. See, in a risk identification, we are identifying assets, we are identifying the vulnerability. So vulnerability identification is very important. So we have to regularly assess the vulnerabilities due to the weak controls, outdated softwares, and lack of security policies. One thing I want to go bit off the topic is every company go for VA, vulnerability assessment, but not every company go for PT. And the reason is very simple, is vulnerability management process is closely work with patch management process. That's why vulnerability management practice we follow, but we don't go for the PT, because aggressive PT can impact the availability. And when we're doing a vulnerability assessment, we do against the security control baseline. Okay, so what is baseline? Minimum security settings we need in a system. Let's say example, we decided we need to implement a password. 8 characters is a password, that's a standard. But alphanumeric is a minimum thing I need in the 8 character password, that's a baseline. So whenever we're talking about technology baseline, baseline is very important. I will give one more example here is, let's say example, this is my system. Okay, I want an antivirus, that's a minimum. Okay. And I want password. So antivirus should be signature based. That's a minimum baseline I need. I cannot go below that. So when you're talking about security control baseline, establish the minimum standard for controls to ensure consistent security across the organization. And how we validate that? With the help of audit. So here one thing you need to understand is audit play a very important role. Okay, let's say example, we have a customer and here we have a vendor. Customer is looking for a cloud solution. Vendor has give him an assurance that we have adequate security controls. Vendor has assured the customer we have adequate security controls. So first fundamental principle you need to remember in CISM, writing it does not mean it happens. Go look and verify. I repeat again, writing it does not mean it happens. Go look and verify. So even they provide me in document that there is a security controls, we validate that control with the help of audit. That is why audit is very important. So when you draft the contract, you add the right to audit clause. So regular audit is important, and any kind of a control deficiencies there, we can able to prioritize based on remediation, based on impact, cost, and threat level. That's something we always look for. Another important thing we always try is, as a CISM professional, we should focus on setting up the baseline which align with the risk tolerance and risk appetite of an organization. Because based on level of risk tolerance, we can take a call. As I said, if the company is new, the risk tolerance is high. If the company is old, risk tolerance is low. Or the company, if they have a low risk tolerance, they invest more money on the controls because they don't want to take much risk. So one more important thing you need to understand, risk versus incident. Incident is a confirmed action. The person already failed this exam. That's an incident. But if you don't prepare this or don't prepare that, you might fail this exam. With the risk, the word come is might. Might. Okay. So one thing you need to understand, it is based on a company risk tolerance, we take all the initiatives. Based on risk appetite, we define the controls. Okay. So either risk tolerance will be the best answer or either risk appetite is the best answer, because ultimately within a risk appetite, we take all the calls. That's why we said here is CSM professional should focus on setting up the baseline aligned with the organization risk tolerance. And on regular basis, we validate to make sure this tolerance will be below the appetite level. It should not go above the appetite level. Okay. So now we understood, okay, we have a threats, we have a assets, we have a vulnerability, but we need to understand the level of impact. And here, the level of impact is called as a three-way to calculate. So we have a three type of analysis: qualitative, quantitative, and hybrid. Now, when you say qualitative analysis, qualitative, we evaluate the impact and likelihood in a descriptive term like high, low, medium. So if the keyword is impact and likelihood, descriptive answer is qualitative risk assessment. Second is called as a quantitative, where we calculate the impact in terms of monetary value. And here we use a formula called ALE. So we have a formula called exposure factor, we have a SLE, and we have a ALE. The first thing what we calculate is the SLE, single loss expectancy, which is equal to asset value into exposure factor. Then we have a ALE, annual loss expectancy. The formula is basically SLE into ARO. Okay, so these are the formulas we are using to calculate the impact. Let's say example, there's a company and they're doing a business and they're generating a $10,000 value every year. Hypothetical scenario. So that is my asset value. Okay, so now we need to calculate the SLE. So asset value is $10,000. Okay, exposure factor, when we have no exposure factor, we always keep 100%. So exposure 100%, so one incident happened, the cost me $10,000. If it's happening once in a year, 10,000. If having two times in a year, then 2,000, so 20,000. So SLEs become $10,000. ARO, it happened once in a year. So overall ALE is basically 10,000. So we never take a call based on a SLE. We always take a call based on ALE, annual loss expectancy. So, and third is called as a hybrid, where we start with the quantitative and then we map to qualitative. I repeat again, we start with the quantitative, and then we move to qualitative. Now, another important thing we need to understand is we have a different way to evaluate the risk. Okay, we have a different way to evaluate the risk, because once we have a result with us, we use those results to measure the level of impact. Okay, and we'll see is the risk value is going beyond the appetite and all that, because whatever the results we got, okay, whatever the words will be there. Let's say example, the capacity is supposed 30, appetite value is 25. Okay, so likelihood is 5, impact is basically 5. So overall is coming 25. So it is equal to appetite. But the value go beyond the 30, 31 and all that. In that case, we need to avoid that risk. So that's the reason risk evaluation is a phase where we map the value with risk appetite and risk tolerance. Okay, ultimately, we have to make sure everything should go below the appetite. Ultimately, we have to drive the activity below the appetite. That is something there. And once you calculate the impact, we also need to prioritize which impact we need to treat first. And that's something we discuss in the BIA, business impact analysis. It is a critical step in understanding the potential impact on business operations. Okay, once you identify the impact, we need to prioritize the impact, which impact we need to treat first. Again, based on the value only, we can able to prioritize the impact. So CSM candidate, so they must evaluate the risk accurately and make sure your mitigation strategy should be aligned with the organization risk appetite and capacity. Okay, remember one thing, this statement is your treatment strategy or mitigation strategy should be aligned with the risk appetite. Make sure risk should be below the appetite. So we have a 4-way to treat the risk. Okay, so we have a 4-way to treat the risk. One is called as a risk avoidance, where you're avoiding a business which bring risk to the company. Example, like I know the exam cost is very high, but I also know if I go for the exam, there's a good increment, there's a good hike in all that. But now I decided I will not go for this exam because cost of exam is very high. So in that case, I drop the idea not to continue my exam. That's called risk avoidance. It is same like you're already doing a business in Europe and India because of strong regulations. Now, if I'm moving to the Singapore or if I'm moving to Saudi, they have a strong regulations. And it already having a lot of losses. There's no point of taking a new business. So in that case, we avoid. And we also take avoidance in that case when the risk going beyond the capacity. Second is called as risk mitigation, where we implementing control to reduce the risk. That is called risk mitigation. And ultimate goal in mitigation is to bring the risk below the appetite level. The third important part is called as risk transfer. We go for risk transfer in that case when we talk about the insurance. We go for risk transfer in that case when the likelihood is low but impact is high. And I'll give an example. Okay, you take a medical insurance, right? Why? So let's say example in India, average individual medical insurance will cost you 10,000 rupees. Okay, for a year you are paying around for 10 year you're paying 1 lakh. For a 10 year you're paying 10 lakh. For 10 year you're paying 1 lakh. For 20 year you're paying 2 lakh. But you know very well you're going to gym, you're wearing helmet, you're doing everything. So likelihood of getting accident is low, but if it happen, the impact is high. Because once you admit in the hospital, this 2 lakh will be go in one shot. Same like you have a strong security controls, you have a strong regulations, you have one of the best thing in the market. But if one issue happen, the impact is very high. So in that case, we make sure we take a cyber insurance. Okay, so with the help of cyber insurance, you can reduce the impact. Fourth is called as risk acceptance, where the cost of control is high over the cost of risk, we accept the risk. When the risk is below the appetite, we accept the risk. And the risk which is left after implementing control, the residual risk, that we accept. Actually, we have a two risk here. One is called as a inherent risk, and one is called as a residual risk. Residual risk. The risk before implementing control is called inherent. Oh, so big book. It is difficult for me to read the book. So that's an inherent risk. Then you attend the training as a part of a treatment, and then you went with a 90% preparation in the exam. So the risk which is left after implementing control, that's called residual risk. And if the residual risk is within an appetite, they accept that. Okay, so that something is a factor. So two conditions are there in which we accept the risk: when the cost of control is higher than cost of risk, or the second is the risk is below the appetite level. But the question is, what should be the strategy of your residual risk? So your residual risk strategy, when we're talking about, it should be, the risk remain after implementing control and should be aligned with the organization risk tolerance. And your risk tolerance should be below the appetite. Okay. So as a CISM context, CISM are responsible for determining and recommending appropriate risk response based on the need and residual risk tolerance. Okay. So once you implement the controls and everything, okay, the next thing is that you have to do the monitoring. So communication monitoring or continuous monitoring is very important. And this is basically where you introduce a pointer, which is called KRI, a matrix to signal the chance in the risk profile and emerging threats. Based on a KRI only, we take a call. In the further slide, we discuss what is KRI, key risk indicator. Let's say example, you're driving a car. Your car switched to reserve. It means you have a less fuel. That is a KRI. If you don't give attention to that, at one point in time, the car will stop. Right now it's giving you indicator, car might stop. Is it clear? If you don't give attention to that, the car will stop. Then it is an incident. So KRI are the signals, changes in the risk profile. Okay. It's very important. Based on a KRI, we take a calls. KRI is a topic very, very important for the exam when you're preparing for the CISM. So when you're talking about the risk reporting, it's very important when you're presenting a reports on the risk, whatever you have. So risk reporting is what? Your identified risk, level of impact, and your recommended controls. Okay. Based on that action plan prepared by the customer. So your reporting should regularly update management on the risk status, and we have to use dashboard to present risk metrics effectively. And based on the audience, we prepare the report. Make sure you should have a clear and structured reporting channel to ensure timely updates should be there on the risk and risk response. So as a CISM candidate, you must define the clear communication channel, reporting mechanism to ensure all stakeholders are informed and involved in the risk management. Now in the risk management process, we have two things: risk owner. So your business are the risk owners. Senior management is the risk owner. So there should be some individual should take the accountability to decide to implement the control. Let's say example, I'm doing an audit of change management process. And I discovered in the change management process, the documentation is missing. So change management lead, the team who heading that, he will be the risk owner. Then he contact the IT team and say, okay, we need some controls from the IT point of view. And they also have a team who is responsible for implementing controls. So there is a person who owns the risk, that's called risk ownership. And in 90% case, control ownership is owned by the same team. But in some 10%, it will be owned by the IT team. Like example, in the change management process, we discovered SSL was not used. So risk will be owned by the change management lead, but control will be owned by the IT team. So control owners typically lies with the responsible for implementing, maintaining the control. That is an important factor we have. Okay, again I'm telling you, risk owner is basically all about informed decisions on the risk mitigation or treatment. And control owner is the one who is responsible for implementing and maintaining the controls. And everything has to be documented. It's very important. Okay, it's very important you have to document that. So ensure all risk and control owners' decisions should be documented. We have to document the decisions, risk acceptance and control effectiveness. So as a CISM, you need to ensure the clarity should be there in risk and control ownership. That's why a company have a RACI chart. And by having this documentation, you can able to facilitating the alignment and accountability within the organization. That something is important part of the requirement. But as I said, when you're implementing a controls and everything, it's very important. You need to make sure you should be comply with the legal regulatory. So you need to comply with GDPR, you need to comply with HIPAA. And we also have a risk from non-compliance, like organization may choose to accept or mitigate risk based on the impact of non-compliance also, right? That is also there. One more important thing, please understand this carefully, okay? Let's take an example. You have a policy. No one's supposed to send any data outside of your company. But now regulatory has a requirement, you need to send them data. Now, if you don't send them, then it's a non-compliance from a regulation. And if you send them, then it's the non-compliance from the policy. So whenever you have to go beyond the policy, you first have to assess the risk of non-compliance, look for the benefit and then take a call. Like, there is a fire occur in data center. Policy says that you should not break the door, but in this case, you have to break the door. So you have to assess the risk of non-compliance and according to that, you have to take the final call. So organization may choose to accept or mitigate risk based on the impact of the non-compliance. Another important thing we have is indemnity agreement. Very, very important. Okay, so this can be used to transfer the responsibility to third party. Any question talking about indemnity agreement, it means we're talking about transferring the responsibility to third party in managing the risk in a third party relationship. Because by the contract only, by the agreement only, you can able to manage the things. Okay, so CISM must work with the legal compliance team, okay, to integrate the regulatory requirements into the risk management process, and by which you can able to manage things effectively. Another important thing we talk about the risk and awareness training. It's very important. You need to update the risk awareness details to the management. So regularly educate employees about the risk factors and best practice. It's better you can add that in a security awareness program. And that is why we say security awareness program should be custom and create as per the audience. Along with that, you can also use metrics to measure the effectiveness of the awareness training, which can be adjusted as necessary. So what is the CISM pointer is effective risk awareness training can significantly reduce the human related vulnerabilities and essential responsibility of the CISM role. That something is there. Now, when we're doing a risk analysis, we have a different way to do the analysis. The first is called as based on a scenario. Okay, we develop the scenario to assess the potential outcome and cascading impact. Let's say example, if supplier is unavailable, what happens? It will not able to provide me the business support functions and all that. If they don't able to provide me support business function, it is a different level of impact. So that is called as a scenario analysis. So we develop the risk scenarios to assess the potential outcome and cascading impact. Cascading mean one impact have on other impact. Another technique that we use is BIA, where we estimate the impact of a specific risk on the business operations. Okay. And third, we prioritize the risk based on likelihood and impact to guide the response strategy. So as a CISM professional, you must be adapt in risk analysis method to predict and prepare for possible risk event and ensure the response strategy are aligned with the business priority and appetite level. Now the question is how you create a risk scenarios. So in that, the first thing is called likelihood. Example, if you're going on the cloud, you might lose the data, you might lose the governance. That's called likelihood. And impact is you will lose the data. So likelihood is a probability of risk occurrence. Let's say example, likelihood is talk about how likely the risk is to occur and usually an appropriate estimate. But impact is talk about the severity and estimate of the effect of the risk if the risk is evaluated, which is impact is called as a consequences. But the another important part we talk about is cascading impact. If impact one business, what is the impact on the other business? That is called as a cascading impact. So when you're evaluating, we have to make sure your evaluation should be aligned with the appetite and tolerance. Remember that, okay? So when you're evaluating, your parameter should be aligned, okay, must be aligned with the organization, risk, appetite, and tolerance, because we have to make sure that risk should always below the appetite level. So as a CISM context, Okay, we develop the realistic risk scenarios which help the CISM professional to understand the impact, and you need to prioritize the risk response effectively. That something is part of the function. So now we have a call to do risk response and defining the acceptable risk level. So without defining a limit, it's difficult to measure if security objectives has been met. And that is the reason we're saying we have to create appetite, capacity, and tolerance. So we have a boundary to be set. So when we're talking about risk appetite, the level risk organization willing to take, the capacity is the maximum risk the organization can handle. There's a difference in appetite and capacity. Appetite is a level of risk that we can take, but maximum risk, we cannot go beyond that. That is called capacity. And the variation between that is called as a risk tolerance. And now what is the exam pointer is, as a parameter CISM role required thorough understanding of acceptable level of risk so that we can able to take a decisions and balance the risk against the goals. Or not Goa, it's goals. Okay. So that something is part of the function. Now we have a criteria based on which we actually go for the risk residual. So we need to evaluate the controls. Okay. Implementation cost. We look for the enterprise culture. We look for the asset criticality. So when we evaluating control implementation, we look for the cost, culture, and asset criticality. And we always accept risk when mitigation cost outweigh the benefit. Okay, so example, like I know the training cost is very high compared to certification cost. So I will accept the exam without going for the training. I will say, okay, I'm getting a second shot free. I'm getting a benefits. Let me go for the exam. So in that case, I'm not spending money on the training because training cost is $1,000, exam cost is $500. So why should I pay $1,000 here, right? So in that case, we accept the risk. So CISM must ensure the residual risks are managed aligned with the organization policies and risk tolerance. Tolerance means it should be below the appetite level. So we maintain some kind of a documents here. So first document is called risk register, which document all the identified risks, including owners and response actions. Second is change management. So adapt the risk policies and business environment change to keep the pace with the new risk. And ultimate goal of change management is to track the accountability. Okay. So effective documentation and version controls are vital because risks constantly getting changed. We also update the documents. So according to that, you need to have a version history. And by that, you can able to allow the CISM to update and track the policy accurately. So it's very important when you identify risk and everything, you need to create a matrix. So effective metrics are very important. And what is a primary objective while developing a matrix? It should have actionable insights. And that matrix can be used for the decision making. So you can use a matrix to track the progress, and you can able to adjust the strategy and report on security status. Okay. And matrix is always a cornerstone of reporting for CISM because it allows them to demonstrate the risk management performance and improvement over the time. That's a very important part. That's why metrics are very important, and it should need to be maintained as per the part of the integrity principle. So now we're talking about one of the most important stuff, which is very, very important for your CISM preparation, is KPI, KRI, and KCI. Before I discuss about this, let me give you a high level overview. See, when we're talking about metrics, the first thing we always set is KPI, key performance indicator. Let's say example, percentage of the system with updated security patch. That is a KPI. Now for that, I'm setting a KRI. KRI basically means the challenge which is basically we face while achieving a KPI, like number of detected malware attempts per month, number of people not available in the office. So that is called KRI. And third is called as a KCI, key control effectiveness, which talk about the percentage of the successful pen test has been passed. So that something is part of the requirement. So more of the story is that we set the KPI, we use KRI, and we use a KCI. So here the first thing is called as a KRI, key risk indicator. Now here you can see KRI are the metrics that indicate changes in the risk profile of the organization. And they signals when risk levels are increasing or when specific risks are approaching unacceptable level. That is called as a KRI. Same like, you're riding a car or you're driving a car, sorry. So after one point of time, there will be reserve. Car will be on reserve. That give me the indicator we have to fill the fuel. If I don't fill the fuel, if it increase at one point on the car may got stop. Right. So that is basically my KRI. So KRI is the matrix which indicate the changes in the risk profile, and they signal when risk levels are increasing or when specific risk approach to an acceptable level. And the purpose of defining a KRI is the organization monitor the potential risk and identify the emerging threats. So example like increase in the failed login attempts might indicate the higher insider threat risk or growing number of unpatched vulnerabilities. So that is a live example of the KRI. So from a CISM context point of view, it's very important you need to know KRI because it is critical for CISM professional to monitor the effectiveness risk management activity, and that is only possible when you monitor the key risk functions. Is it clear? So let me explain you again. KRI first is called KPI, indicator that helps to govern, manage and provide the assurance that we are achieving our objective. KRI indicator helps to govern, manage and provide assurance about the risk. And KCI, key control indicator, is the indicator talk about the control effectiveness. So in my next slide, I'm going to discuss about the KCI, key control indicator. So KCI measure effectiveness of control implemented to mitigate specific risk, and they indicate how well the existing controls are working to manage the risk. And the purpose is control performance and all that. So example of the controls are number of successful firewall block or number of access violations detected by the monitoring system. So for CISM, KCI helps in verifying the controls in place, and by that, by having effective KCI, we can have a reduce in the KRI. Now third is called as a KGI, key goal indicators. Okay, so KGI are the high level metrics that measure the progress toward achieving the strategic objectives. In some cases, we use KBI as a KGI. And with the help of KGI, you can evaluate if the information security program is meeting the strategic objectives. So if the question says which matrix is very, very important to check, are we achieving a strategy objectives? And answer is KGI. Which matrix is basically used to track the ineffectiveness of the control or ineffectiveness of the risk parameters and all, then answer is KRI, because KCI included in the KRI. So we have some examples here, like achievement rate of completion target is my KGI. Reduction in the number of security incidents or breach over the time, that is called as a KGI. So I'll give an example. Okay, so let's say example, your organization is willing to accept low risk of data breach. Okay, so here we have a risk appetite, and the risk appetite is risk appetite is accept a low risk of data breaches. That is called risk appetite. Now for this we set the KRI. Give me a second. So here we have a KRI, key risk indicator. So what is a KRI? Number of new malware detect per month. That is called KRI. Then we have a KPI. Okay. Number of data breach per month. And then, so here what happened, the target is that your organization want to detect 99% of the new malware variant. So organization will monitor the number of new malwares, which is variant detected per month. If number of new malware variant detect per month exceed by 1%, then organization will take action to mitigate the risk. Is it clear? So KRI is number of new malware variant detected per month, and KPI is the number of data breaches per month. So your organization want to detect 99% of a new malware variant. So monitoring, what we're doing is you will monitor the number of new malware variant detected per month. If the number of new malware variant detected per month exceed by 1%, so your organization will take an action to mitigate the risk. Is it clear? So that's how you set the KPI, KJ and all that. So more of the story is that one thing we need to understand here is, KGIs are essential for demonstrating the value and impact of security program to senior management, and they provide the evidence. So KGI are the high level metrics that measure the progress. So by end of the day, this is the only metrics which provide to the management, and they provide the evidence that your security initiatives are basically supporting the organization goals, and they're supporting a continuous improvement. So we have a different type of controls that we implement. So we have a preventative control, we have a corrective control, we have a detective, we have a compensating, we have a deterrent control. Let's say example, we have a firewall. So we introduce a firewall to reduce or eliminate the attacks. Their primary objective is to violate, attempt to, block those things which violate the security policy, governance and everything. So that is called as a preventative control. Second is called as a corrective control. Corrective control come into the picture if the preventative control is failed and we have record the incident. After incident, we have to reduce the impact. That is called as a corrective control. Third is called as a detective control. Detective control means detect the incident. Compensating control come into the picture when your primary control is not effective, but it is used to further block the attack. That is called compensating. And deterrent control is something which is talk about the behavior of the preventing the or discouraging a behavior. So let me give you an example. So we have a policy, okay, no one's supposed to browse social media 9 to 5. If we found anyone browsing social media 9 to 5, we will take a necessary actions. We will fire that candidate. We will terminate the candidate. So that is called as a deterrent control. In that policy, we give the warning. Still, there is a one employee who tried to open the social media. But problem is that firewall has blocked that particular website. That is called as a preventative control. Now what happened is he disconnect from the internet. He tried to use his external dongle and through that he trying to connect the internet. But because of DLP, it still prevent him from browsing the site. So here we have a DLP which is act like a compensating control. Till now there is no incident, but is all these activities record in the logs. That is called as a detective control. Isolate a system immediately and terminate the candidate. That is basically called as a corrective control. So this is how we basically works. Okay, one more example. If we find anyone outside without any reason, we will put them in the jail. That's part of a deterrent control. During a COVID time, right? Remember, during a COVID time, we have introduced this circular, right? So people are wearing masks, maintaining a social distance. That's a part of preventative. Compensating is they have a vaccinations. So we did the trials, we did the test and all that, and we discover some COVID positive. That's called detective control. And isolate a person immediately from the family. That is part of a corrective, and go for his recovery and all that. So all those are part of corrective. Okay. So if the question talking about backup procedures, backup restoration, answer is corrective control. Question talking about audit controls, audit trails, IDS, the answer is basically detective control. If the question specifically targeting about around multi-layer defense, that's the answer is compensating control. Okay, because compensating control are introduced to reduce the risk of an existing or potential control weakness. Okay, deterrence control reduce the threat by providing warning and all that. But we implement in a 3-way. So one is called as a managerial. Another name of a managerial is administrative control. So don't get confused in the exam. Another name of managerial is called as a administrative control. Actually, we are implementing all this in a 3-way: managerial way, technical way, and physical way. I will give an example. Now, when I say managerial control, it is also called as a administrative control. So company send a policy, no one's supposed to browse social media 9 to 5. If you found anyone browsing social media, we'll take a necessary action. So it's like an administrative, but more like a deterrent in nature. No one is allowed if they don't wearing a mask. That's an administrative preventative. So administrative controls apply to the processes and behavior by the people. Example, policy, procedure, employee development, compliance reporting, and all that. Technical control is something we apply to the information system, software, and network, which include the firewall, intrusion detection, and password and antivirus software. And physical control, something you apply physically. Okay, security guards and all that. So here, controls and can any effect category will implement, but most important part is we implement based on a risk assessment. Now in the domain 2, there are some topics we have which is technical in nature, but it is testable. The first is called as a DMZ. Now what is DMZ? So before going to understand the DMZ, let me share the brief history. Now this is your internet, okay? This is one network. You have web server also in here. You have a DNS also here. Now you have a database also here. Just give me a second. You have a database also here, and you have a AD also here. All are part of the same network. Everything is part of a same network. Okay. So these two are critical and these two sensitive. And now there is a user from outside. So user is here You want to access the internet. So when user try to access the internet, and through that he want to access the website, if we install the firewall here, in the firewall, if we have too many restrictions, so all the packet going through these restrictions, and it take time for the inspection, it will slow down the process, and that basically delay the performance, and customer will not be happy. It is same like, you know, in airport security checks after immigrations and all that, the same thing happen here. So websites and so one thing we need to understand is, if I consider this factor, I have to have a very limited rules in the firewall. If I consider this factor, I have to have very strict rules in the firewall. That is what happened. We created DMZ, demilitarized zone. It's a concept came from military. DMZ. Now, when you're talking about the DMZ concept, we keep those systems in the DMZ, which is a public facing site. For me, website and DNS should be public facing, and which is sensitive nature, we kept in the database. So ultimate goal of having a DMZ is to protect my internal network from outside. So any connections comes, it will be terminated at this point. And then we basically install the another firewall here to block the further actions. So remember one thing, whatever the public facing server we have, we can keep it in the DMZ, and ultimate goal of DMZ is to protect my internal network from external attack. Along with that, we are using cryptography. There's a dedicated video I made on cryptography, symmetric and asymmetric. When we're using a same key to encrypt and decrypt the data, that is called symmetric. When I'm using public and private key to encrypt and decrypt the data, we use asymmetric. But today we use these two cryptography together. How? Symmetric cryptography we use for data encryption, and we use asymmetric for the key exchange. And that is why today it is called as a hybrid cryptography. So as a summary, here you can see in the summary. KRI, detect rising risk and allow CISM to respond proactively. KCS is the control effectiveness, guiding the fine tuning. And KGI, measure the achievement of security goals, showing the strategic impact of security effort. So this is all from my side on domain 2. Let's move to domain 3. Thank you. Okay, so we are in a domain 3, information security program. Information security program represent 33% of the domain of the entire CISM, and we have around 50 questions we can expect from this area. Those who are preparing for CISM, make sure you should give proper attention to the domain 3. It's a very important after domain 1. So in this particular domain, we're going to discuss about how to build program, because program include the controls, and controls we implement based on the risk assessment, and that we already did in the domain 2. So when we're talking about the program, okay, give me a second. So when you're talking about the program is all about a set of controls, which include your risk management, incident management, other functions. So we develop the cohesive program to move away from a fragmented security effort and integrate security into the enterprise-wide risk awareness. And a good program is the one which can be integrated across the organization. So the program steps include define the desired outcome. Like outcome is, I want to implement the GDPR controls. I want to implement the ISMS. So the program step include define the desired outcomes. Then we conduct the gap analysis, and then we develop the strategy. This can be the parameter testable, like when we do gap assessment. So when we defining a desired outcome, then we do the gap analysis, and then we develop the strategy and roadmap to bridge the gap. Okay, my outcome is I want security controls. Current, what is the level of security control? Then we develop the strategy to fill the gap. So what is the context here is, as a CISM professional, you're responsible for structuring an effective program with a measurable outcome, and that is only possible with the help of metrics. And we have to make sure this program should be aligned with the security objectives and enterprise goal. Now, when you're talking about this program has a framework. So we use COBIT, we use 27001, and we also use NIST CSF, cybersecurity framework. And we also use enterprise security architecture, which is act as a blueprint and aligning your security with business goals and supporting a risk management. Because by using an architecture, you can able to organize things in a block. So as a CISM candidate, you should be familiar with the frameworks, because frameworks helps the CISM to choose a best approach to building and maintaining a program. Okay. Now, when we're talking about the program outcome, so program outcome is mapped with the strategic alignment, risk management, value delivery, resource management and performance measurement. We already discussed in the past, like my initiative should be aligned with the business. For that, we do risk management. Your program should create a value, should have a proper ROI, and we should able to manage the resource effectively, and we should introduce a matrix to measure the program effectiveness. So we develop the program in a phases, starting with a stakeholder interview. We draft the policies and ensure the policy compliance. So as a CISM candidate, the roadmap basically helps the CISM to create step-by-step guide for implementing a security initiatives and make sure you're keeping the strategic alignment with the business goals as a priority. Now, when you're implementing a program, you introduce a matrix. So we have an operation matrix, which measure day-to-day security activities like vulnerability management, open vulnerabilities and all that. Second is called as a management matrix, which track the policy compliance cost effectively. And then we have a strategic matrix, which align with the organization level security goals. Strategic matrix are introducing to convey board, managerial matrix to convey the CISOs, and operation matrix are for the operation teams. So by this, they can able to track the things. So as a CISM candidate, you should know that effective use of matrix allows CISM to demonstrate the program progress to the senior management, and also based on the matrix only take a decision. So it enables the data-driven decisions. Now, when we're talking about program management, so program management, the first thing is include the program objectives, where we have to define goals in measurable terms. So we establish the metrics and monitor the performance. Let's say example, my goal is to maintain 99.999 availability. That is my measurable term. Okay, then based on that, I will establish the metrics. I will try to monitor. I have to make sure the maximum downtime is 1%. It should not go beyond that, because 99% is the availability we have to maintain. And that is why we have one committee, which is the team of the security, business, technical, and everything, who jointly discuss everything. And the good information security strategy or approval requirement of security strategy comes if the security steering committee or strategy committee approve that strategy, because if they are approving, it means we're taking consent from all the departments. So as a committee will guide the strategy and approve changes and ensure alignment with the organization goal. Now, next thing, we talk about the context. So program management ensure the IS program achieve its defined objectives. Steering committee, which provide the essential oversight and support. Now, next important part we need to understand is training program. Now, please listen this carefully. We have three things here. One, we talk about the awareness. One, we talk about the training. And one, we talk about the education. Okay, awareness, modify behavior. Training, modify skill. Education, modify career. Okay, so we have a task. To perform a task, you need a special skill. To perform a skill, you need a knowledge, and knowledge you impart from the training, not from awareness training. So you're attending a CISM program where you will learn the knowledge of security governance. That basically create a skill for you, how to create a policy and everything. And based on that, you can able to do the task. But do you have the adequate knowledge? We do the competency score test. You are in impression that, okay, 8 character is a secure password. So you are using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But now in the awareness program, you got to know that you have to change the behavior. You have to use alphanumeric and special character. That is basically part of awareness. So question is when to do training, when to do awareness. Whenever an employee join the organization, after joining the organization, the first thing he will do, he will sign the NDA, sign the contract, and then he attend the awareness and training program. So we start the training at onboarding and we continue with the regular updates. We also have a role-based training for the specific skill sets. We use different methods for the engagement, like quiz, reminders. The best method is gamifications. We have to choose communication method and content appropriate. So according to audience, we have to prepare the content. According to audience, we have to prepare the training content also. That is something is very, very important. Okay. So as a CISM awareness program, reduce the human errors. So the human is the weakest link in the organization. So no matter in one laptop, you have a strong password, you have a best EDR and all that. But if there's no patch for human stupidity, so if human do mistake, it's a problem. Like social engineering, password sharing can be mitigated by the human awareness only. That's why we say the most effective control for social engineering is the awareness program. Because with the help of awareness program, we can able to improve the behavior of the person. And one of the best way to measure the awareness program is increase in the incident report and decrease in a security violation. Because if they attend the awareness training, they get more information about how to report an incident. And by reporting more incident, we can reduce the security violation. So we always believe that security program should be integrated with the IT operations, and it should be integrated as early as possible. So one of the program we have is SDLC, Software Development Lifecycle. And we always prefer the security should introduce as early as possible, because if we go by the SDLC process, we have a different phases in the SDLC. The first step is initiation. Second is called as a acquisition and development. Third is called as a implementation. Then fourth is called as an operation. We always prefer security should be introduced as early as possible. That's why in the initiation we introduce security, because this is where you understand the requirement of the customer. Then you take a call whether you need to develop in-house or you have to acquire from outside. Then you go for testing and then you deploy the operations. We also have a new modern methodology. So we have a two type of development methodology. One is called as a iterative, and one is called as a non-iterative. Iterative, you're interacting with the customer parallelly and discussing things, and the best example of iterative is agile. Non-iterative is waterfall. So if you see the Indian movies, we call it Pushpa Darraj, main jhukega nahi. So that is a non-iterative waterfall. If you move from phase 1 to phase 2, you cannot go back. That's a non-iterative. Iterative is like just like a Suryavansham movie. Whatever Babuji will say, I will follow. That is a iterative. So in iterative, what happened? We have a daily meetings. We have a weekly meeting to discuss the status of the project. That's why we introduce the concept DevOps and DevSecOps. So in this case, what happened? We have a development team, and then we have an operation team, and then we have a quality team. And they follow one concept which is called CI and CD. So during a CI, we develop the module, we integrate the model, we release the module, then we test the model, and then we store in the repository. So we introduce module by module in the pipeline. So we integrate the security in the agile process. Why? To ensure the secure continuous deployment. So this is the pointer you need to know. So what is the best way you can maintain the secure continuous delivery? By integrating security in the agile process. How you ensure the security in SDLC? You can introduce the security as early as possible, which save time and cost also. And the best way you can ensure the security is integrate the security program in the SDLC. That's something we can try. So CISM should facilitate the integration of information security with IT operation to ensure security is baked into the process, not treated as an afterthought. That's a very important part. The next important thing, we talk about the program, communications, reporting, and performance management. So it's very important. You need to regularly update the stakeholders to ensure the transparencies, and make sure you use some kind of a dashboards to present the security facts. One thing always remember, whenever you're presenting the reportings, whenever you're presenting the facts, make sure you should have a proper integrity, because if you don't produce with the facts, it's a problem. So CISM need to ensure they have a strong communication skills to convey the program values and ensure the continuous support from senior leadership. Now, next thing we talk about the policy, procedure, and program. So one thing we need to understand that when you're implementing security program, the policy is the foundation step. Without policy, governance can be ineffective. And if you want to check the maturity of any company, the first thing you ask the policy document. So let's say example, we have a business, we have a legal, we have a regulatory requirement. And here the senior management has an intention, they have a wish. The people who are working on the operation level, like people, process, and technology, wish to comply with the regulations, legal, and business. So first thing, what we do, we create a policy. So policy set the intention, set the expectations and directions. Always remember, hey guys, every system must be protected with the password. So that's a policy. So employee will say, okay, we know, but what is the size of the password? So password should be 8 character. That is called standard, 8 character. Step-by-step process of creating a password, that is called procedure. So policy is strategic in nature. Standard is tactical, and operational is procedure in nature. Guideline is optional, good to have. And any kind of a deviations we're doing from the policy, make sure we should follow the exception management and make sure we document that approach. So your policy standard may need expectations, exceptions also. So we can establish the formal document process for the risk-based exceptions. Example, like we have a policy, no one's supposed to send data outside of the organization. standard is we should not send confidential data. But in some cases, we have to send those data. So we follow the exception process. We assess the risk of non-compliance and then we send that. And we have to document these exceptions because policy is sometimes dynamic in nature. You cannot have an anarchy there. And policy need to be reviewed annually or in the case of major change in the business. That's a very important part you need to understand. So a well-defined policy, standards support the effective governance. And when you're building a policy, the most important element is that it should have a compliance with the strictness, with flexibility to demonstrate the practical change. That something is there, okay? Now, next thing we need to understand the controls. I think we already discussed that, but just for a clarity. So we have a preventative control, which stop the incident before they occur. Detective control, identify incidents. Corrective is address the impact after the incident, and compensating is alternative control when primary control is insufficient. But is the control is working effectively? And that's something we assess with the help of VAPT. So ultimate goal of doing a VAPT testing is to check the control effectiveness. So any question talking about ultimate goal of testing, ultimate goal of VAPT, answer is demonstrating the effectiveness of the control. If I'm saying firewall is effective, by doing a VAPT, we assessing the firewall effectiveness. So we regularly evaluate control effectiveness to adapt to the new risk and validate the controls aligned with the desired security posture. And by VAPT, we do that. So CISM has a task which ensure the controls effectively manage the risk. Okay, optimize the defense in depth strategy, and that actually balance the cost with security need. Now question is, how can we do this controls? So we introduce some kind of an automation controls, which reduce the human error, but that demand the consistent configuration. Without having a consistent configuration, it is difficult for us to implement the automation in the controls. And one primary advantage of automation control is fastest way to respond to any incidents. Another important automation we are using is SOAR, Security Orchestration Automation Response. Okay, so this word orchestration is a word come from orchestra band. Imagine like, you have a drum, you have a piano, you have a flute. So everyone has to play together in such a way that it's creating meaningful sound, music. Same like in the organization, we have a firewall. Okay, so we have a firewall here. And then we have a SIM here. Then we have a system A. And then we have a SOAR. So now what happened? Any incident happen. Any incident is, So any incident is trigger. Okay, firewall send the logs to SIM. That activities basically went to A, that information goes to SIM. SIM basically feed the logs to SOAR. SOAR is basically based on that, it acts like a brain. And according to that, it will try to block the attack. So here what happened, all solutions are orchestrated with the help of SOAR. So he take the unified approach through which he integrate and respond to the thing. So the biggest reason of using a SOAR is enabling the faster threat detection and response, because they follow one concept which is called runbook. The reason of introducing a SOAR is initially what happened when we used to have any incident on a particular system, we always send a L1 guy there, security analyst L1. To save time and all that, now we create a threshold. If this happen, they should block this. If this happen, we block this. So that instruction has to given in the SOAR, and that instruction is called as a runbook. Okay, so they follow the predefined instructions for the basic incidents, which save time of the SOC professionals. There's another solution we are using which is called as a log management system. So we have a firewall here. We have a switch. We have a system A. We have a system B, we have a system C. Okay. Now, if you can notice here, we have a log management system. So any activity happen, bypass the firewall, went to system A, B, C, D. So if you don't have a log server, manually we have to go to firewall, manually we have to go to system A, B, C to collect the logs. And then we have to check the logs, which take time. And devices does not have enough storage to hold a huge amount of logs. So that's why what happened, any activity happen the firewall, I want one dedicated server to keep all the logs. And that's where we introduce the concept of log server. Okay, that is why we introduce the concept of log server. But problem is that now any activity recorded in the firewall, it will not store in the firewall. It will be stored in the log server. So now we have one server, we keep all the logs. But the problem is that, again, manually we have to convert the logs. Manually, we need to correlate the logs. Manually, we need to analyze, take time. So if I'm looking for the correlation purpose and all that, then we introduce a concept which is called SIEM, security security incident event management, or security information event management tool. There's no tool in this world detect the incident, they detect the event. So now what happen, any activity happen in the firewall, it go to the SIEM. The first step what they do, they collect the log. They normalize the log. Normalize basically mean converting log into one common format. Then correlate and generate the activity. But again, SIEM only detect the threats, but correlate the threats, respond to threats, block the threats. So they basically send the instruction to SOAR, and SOAR based on that block the attacks. And that's how the security evaluation starts. So as a CISM context, what we need to understand here is automation control enhance the reliability and scalability and core aspect of program management. So I want to show you something. Just give me a second. So if you can see the scenario, you can see the very good perspective is firewall, protect the network parameter. So you inspect and block the incoming outgoing network traffic. Then we have a EDR in every system which secure the individual endpoint, monitor, detect the suspicious activity. Then we have a SIEM correlate data and detect the threats, which aggregate the logs from firewalls, EDR, and based on the, and then they give information to SOAR. SOAR is basically based on that take the automatic decisions. So that's how things works in the organization. Okay. Now, next important element we called about the third party management. So third party mean we're dealing with third party who providing me services. So let's take an example. Okay. So this is my company A. So we have a company A. I'm conducting a sessions. I'm conducting an online training. And for that, I have relied on the vendor, which is called as a Zoom or GoToMeeting. If they are down, by end of the day, I'm the one who answerable to the customer. So even I'm transferring the responsibility, but I'm accountable for things. Example, like you reach out to me for training, right? And we agreed that, okay, from Sunday, we'll have a session, but that time Zoom doesn't working. So by end of the day, I'm the one who answerable to you. So that's why in the company, we have one department, which is called as a vendor management department. Okay, give me a second. So we have a department, which is called as a vendor management department. So when they onboard the vendor, they assess the vendor's risk, evaluate the things and all that. Okay. To make sure the vendor should not impact anything. So in the vendor management, the first step is define the third party risk management requirement. And anything you basically take the services, it will do based on the contract. So contract include the right to audit clause. And third is that regularly we have to assess the third party compliance with SLA. One thing you need to make sure when you're outsourcing a services, you have to document all the service expectation in the SLA and contract. If you fail to achieve the SLA, then it's a problem. So a right to audit clause is very, very important. So we have to ensure the vendors uphold the security policies and establish the exit strategy to manage the transition. That's a very important part that we need to understand. Okay, that's a very important part you need to understand. Another important thing we need to understand here is the managing vendor security is a critical responsibility, especially in the case of outsourcing, because it increases the complexity and risk. And only way you can able to manage this control is by the contract, and make sure in the contract you add the right to audit clause. That's a very important part. Okay. The next important part we called as a compliance and enforcement. So we have to do compliance monitoring. So we do the continuous monitoring and then into the policies and standard, and we have to ensure the policy compliance, thorough automate tools with periodic review. So compliance enforcement reduce the risk and helps to meet the regulatory requirement. And as a CISM, you should create and maintain a strong compliance culture. And whatever you implemented, you do the monitoring. So we have ongoing monitoring. With the help, we can track the performance and detect the unusual activities. And for the incident detection, we use IDS and SIEM. I already discussed IDS, intrusion detection system. So when we're talking about the IDS, there's a dedicated video I made on that. In IDS, we have two things. One is called as a host-based IDS. One is called as a network-based IDS. Let's say example, this is my NIDS, which I install on the border of the network. Then we have a switch here. Then we have a system A. Then we have a system B, and then we have a system C. Okay. So now what happened is we have a traffic which passes through the NIDS. NIDS can track from where it is coming to where it is going. but it will not able to detect what kind of a changes it introduced in A, B, C. So for that, in every system, we install the HIDS. HIDS detect the intrusion in each systems. But the question is now how the IDS will detect the intrusions. So first they use a signature, and second is called as a behavior. So when the packet passed to the NIDS check the signature of the traffic and compare again the stored signature. If it match, it is a intrusion. That is called signature base. But one disadvantage of signature base is that it failed to detect the new attacks. That's why we introduced a second called behavioral base, which is also called as an anomaly. So in the anomaly, what happened? We're sending a multiple packets. So we believe, okay, these are a series of packets we are receiving. So example, like we have a server should receive the traffic on port number 80, but we're receiving a traffic on port number 23, which is not expected. And it is against the baseline. So that will be recorded under the anomaly. And we also use a vulnerability assessments and identifications and everything. So as a CISM candidate, okay, so continuous monitoring is essential for identifying and addressing potential issues in real time. And the critical part of CISM role is to maintain the effective security posture. So we use some kind of metrics, like we use KGI, KPI, KRI to measure the progress, demonstrate the values. So whenever the question talking about information security programs, we use this KPI, KGI, KRI. Most important is KRI. And if you're looking for cost benefit analysis, we use a TCO, total cost of ownership, the investment that you did, and the profit that you earn, that's called ROI, return of investment. Example, like you're spending money on CISM training, you're spending money on the CISM certification, that's called TCO. And based on that, you get a hike of $5,000, $10,000. That is called as a ROI, return of investment. So it's very important if you want to demonstrate the information security program values through the metrics and cost analysis. It can be done with the help of investments. It can be done with the help of this TCO and ROI metrics. Now, next important thing, we talk about the cloud computing. Very, very important. Very important. Okay. Now, when we're talking about cloud is just like an internet. Okay. You know, when we used to draw internet, so we used to draw like this. So same we called as a cloud. Cloud is just like that. Computing is all about processor, memory, CPU storage that you can access from anywhere. So when we're talking about cloud computing, it's very important for us that from a exam perspective, you need to understand one thing is data security, data governance is a responsibility and accountability of a cloud customer. Physical security is a responsibility of a cloud provider. Let's say example, this is you, a subject, data subject, who went to the bank. Bank is using a third-party cloud for the CRM. Okay, so if cloud is compromised, data is compromised, by another bank is the one who answerable to customer. It's answerable to RBI. It's answerable to SEC. So always remember one thing, you transferring the responsibility, but you cannot transfer the accountability. So when it comes to the cloud, okay, the biggest reason of going for the cloud is on demand. It is available whenever it required, right? Agree? And you can compare cloud computing on demand with Uber. You moved to new city and you're new to that city. You don't want to own the car. Okay, so you decided to use Uber on demand, and they have a broad network access. You can access from anywhere. They also offer you metrics, measure services, how much you use, you will do the billing accordingly. And they have a rapid scalability, elasticity. You need 2 cars, it will be available. You need 1 car, it is available. So these are the ideal features which reflect a good cloud provider. Now the cloud computing providing 3 types of services, IaaS, PaaS and SaaS. So IaaS provision the storage, okay, memory, RAM, CPU. Sorry, storage, RAM and CPU. We only need to pay, or billing will be done based how much storage I'm consuming, how much RAM I'm consuming, how much CPU I'm consuming. I can decide as a customer what OS I want to install or application I want to install. So yes, you can say from the options point of view, in this case, customer has a more control, but consider option to minimize the impact if cloud provider experiences service interruption, it's a problem. Okay. Second is called as a platform as a services. Platform services mean I don't want to own RAM, CPU. I don't have a time. Just provide me the defined computation. I will move my application on that particular computation. My expertise doing a development, I'm good with that. You handle the computation. That is called as a platform as a services, which allow for a deployment of customer created acquire application using a programming language. Third is called as a software as services. I don't want to do anything. I'm a startup. I want CRM. So you develop the CRM, you build the CRM and provide me as a services, because I don't have a money to spend money on the hardware. So today I don't want to buy a very huge hardware configuration. With a basic laptop, I can connect to the cloud and I can access any application. And the best example of SaaS is Gmail, Office 365, best example. Everything is developed by Microsoft. You just need an internet connection. With the help of connection, you can connect with the cloud and access your application from anywhere. Okay, so that's the thing. So as you know, in a SaaS, you have a limited control. So only way you can able to control is contract. You try to bring more and more customization with the help of contract. So summary is that when it comes to SaaS, software as services, the provider manage most security aspect, customer focus on user access control and data protection. In the platform as services, customer responsible for securing application they develop on the platform. In the IaaS, customer handle the operating system security and application security, data protection. Everything will be handled by the cloud customer. Now it's up to us how we deploy the services. So we have a 4 type of deployment here. The first is called as a public cloud, cost effective. Okay, but less control over the security. Like example, you open the Amazon, you subscribe to Amazon services, I subscribe to Amazon services. We have a common SLA and everything. That's called public cloud. It is same like me and you are going on the same party. Second is called as a private cloud. Private cloud means greater controls, security, but high cost. Dedicated instances will be available to you. You build your own data center, host the services. Hybrid is a combination public and private. Okay, which offer flexibility but can introduce the integration challenge. Let's say example, the company having its own data center and host their own cloud services. They do their development on this zone. And once the application is ready, for a scalability reason, they're using a public cloud. So they're using a both. That's an example of hybrid cloud. Okay, so that's an example of hybrid cloud. And then you can reuse your in-house infrastructure for some other activities. And community cloud is like a balance a shared cost with a specific compliance need. 2-3 companies come together and they decided they will invest money and they will host their data because they don't have a budget to private cloud, but neither they want to go for public cloud. So in India, the example is IBCC and all that, Indian Bank Council. So summary is that data security governance is the accountability of a cloud customer, and physical security is all service model responsibility cloud provider. This is all in the domain 3. Let's move to the domain 4. Thank you. Now next is domain 4. 30% of the content testable from domain 4 and around 45 questions we can expect from domain 4. Now when it comes to information security, incident management, very technical stuff. Okay, so first we need to understand the incident. Now, incident is anything which impact the organization in a negative manner. That is called as an incident. Okay. And I will give an example, the best example. So I have a scheduled training which need to be start from 9 a.m. I was there by 8:45 and 9 o'clock I was able to start the session. So that's an event. So a series of activity used to achieve the business objective, that is an event. But I reach 9:05, which is against the business objective, then it is an incident. So incident is anything which impact the organization in a negative manner. Now, if you have a recurrence of incident, it lead to the disaster. And if you don't give attention to disaster, it lead to the crisis. So difference between risk and incident is risk is the probability, but incident is a confirmed action. So unexpected events impacting information security or CIA, that is called as incident. And the focus is on management response. So incident management program fall under the risk management. It include planning, preparation, identification, containment, eradication, recovery, which I'm going to discuss in the further slide. So incident management is the overall governance, planning and coordination, and response is the tactical actions that you take. Okay, so you can say like that response is a part of the management program. Okay. So as a CISM, understanding these distinctions help in designing a proactive incident management program that integrate with enterprise risk management. And a good program is the one which integrates with the risk management program. Now let me explain you with one correlation, how risk management is correlated with incident management. See, you identify the risk, you evaluate and you treat. I skip the assessment. Okay. So some of the treatment where the risk is within an acceptable level. So we have to monitor that. And that will be integrated with the incident management, because if any point in time risk going beyond the appetite and all that, with the help of incident management, we have to reduce the impact. That is why incident response program or incident management program is closely work with the risk management, okay, especially residual risk. Now, next important thing we need to understand is the component of incident response plan. So identification, classification of incident, because it is not possible for the one person to handle all the incidents. So we always classify, categorize based on the urgency and impact. So we receive 2 incident tickets, 1 ticket related to the workstation, 1 ticket related to the server. So we check the urgency and impact, and according to that we take a call. It is very important in your response plan, you must include the notification and escalation process. Then we have a containment like isolate a system, removing a virus, that's called eradication, restoring a system back to the production is recovery. So ultimate goal of the incident response plan or management plan is to minimize the impact. And we always look for the facilitating the quick recovery and establish the severity criteria. So as a CISM, we have to ensure your IRP should be aligned with the BCP DR plan and ensure response plan can be escalated to recovery if needed. Now, when we're talking about the incident classification, as I said, incident will be classified based on the severity. Okay, based on the number of affected systems. And it is very, very important to have an escalation process. Why? Because when you're defining incident, escalate to senior management reporting is required. And that's something that has to be documented. Okay, that's a very important part. Another important thing we always look for is proper classification escalation. So we have to ensure the efficient handling and prioritization because it allows CISM to maintain focus on incidents that align with the enterprise risk appetite. And we have some terminologies here, like we are using SIM, which aggregate and correlate the events. Then we introducing a new solution, which is called EDR and XDR. We already discussed. Let's say example, this is my firewall. And we connected with the switch. And here we have a system A. So now what happened? We have a IP which is able to bypass the firewall and went to the switch to A. If you talk about traditional antivirus, it detects the virus, okay, in the file, and based on that it reacts. But if virus bypass the antivirus and trying to modify the system memory, system application, I want to block in that level. That is why in every system we install the EDR. So E stand for endpoint, D stand for detection and respond. So whenever any memory stacks, any kind of a modification attempt, EDR will try to block that. But now it basically bypass a B, C, and all that. So for that we basically use the XDR. So XDR is work on the network level and it aggregate the alerts, and according to that it will block the attack on the firewall and everything. So EDR work on the endpoint specific, but XDR work on the overall network. We also have a MDR. MDR means third party will deploy the solution in your organization. Okay, so that is something is called as a MDR, which outsource security monitoring response services to third party. So as CISM, you have to be familiar with these technologies because selecting a tool that improve detection, tracking, resolution is part of the need of the organization. Now, when you plan your incident management, and this is the most important part you have, this is called your incident management cycle or life. So first part is called as a planning and preparation. Do not skip that. And there is a dedicated coffee shot I made on this. Okay. So first is called as a planning and preparation. So in this stage, we create a policy. Okay. Create a policy. We acquire the management support. Okay. And we develop the user awareness. So we conduct the research, we build the checklist, we develop the communication plan and awareness training. That's something we do in the planning and preparation step. Second is called as a detection, triage, and investigation. In this, we detect the incident, we prioritize the incidents, we implement the IDS, we conduct the participations, and more important, we also talking about here is incident response functions and everything. And we conduct the logs, audits, and everything. That will be done in this particular stage. Now, next thing is called as a containment. Containment analysis is all about tracking and recovery. We execute the containment strategy. Containment strategy means isolate a system. We perform the forensic analysis. We executing a recovery procedure in line with enterprise business continuity disaster recovery. And we also determine the source of incident and post parameter. That is part of a containment. So we isolate a system. We analyze the criticality. We track and we restore the system back to the production. And finally, we have a post-incident assessment. Ultimate goal of post-incident assessment is to conduct the post-mortem. Exactly what happened, at what time, how well did the staff management perform dealing with the incidents. Okay, where the document procedure has been followed. Is it adequate? how to improve that. And then we have an incident closure. Ultimate goal of post-incident assessment is to improve the overall program. So I repeat again, detection is to confirm and validate. So if you get a question, in which particular stage we confirm the incident, the answer is detection only. If anyone has reported incident, the first step is to confirm the incident. That's called detection. Then we follow the triage, T-R-I-A-G, triage. Triage is basically very important part. Okay, because triage help you to prioritize and everything. Okay, so during the prioritizations, we rate the incidents and then we track and then we investigate further and then we isolate a system. Then we do analysis because we can't do the investigations or analysis in the live environment. So we isolate a system, then we do analysis, we restore the system back to the state, and then we do the post incident, and then we have an incident closure. Incident closure is very important. Okay, because incident closures give you the detailed reports about everything. Okay, so that we're going to discuss in the further slide. So this is important and confirm from the perspective. Okay, it's very, very important and you should have a very good understanding of this particular process. Okay, so please understand this properly. It's a very important part. Now I want your attention on this slide. Okay, it's very important. The first step is called as a preparation. So this phase prepare the organization to develop the IRP prior to the incident. Sufficient preparation facilitate the smooth execution. So preparation is, if the question talking about in which stage we establish the policy, we establish the approach, we establish the communication plan, we develop the process, we develop the criteria to report the incident, everything building governance about incident management comes in the preparation stage. Second is called as identification. This phase aim to verify if any incident has happened and find more details about it. Example, like some user has reported virus. It is not necessary, okay, I will go and I will report that issue. It will not be like that. Okay, so we have to first confirm. Okay, first we need to confirm it's true or not. So that is called as an identification, because not all reports are valid. Okay, as I said, not every event is an incident, but every incident is an event, right? So activity in this stage, we assign the ownership, we verify the reports, we establish the chain of custody, we determine the severity of the incidents and all that. Then we have a containment. Okay, it's confirmed the system is infected with the virus. Isolate a system immediately. I don't want, just doing a continuous investigation, during that time. So containment is very important because with the help of containment, we can isolate a system and we can reduce the impact. The reason of doing a containment is to make sure the affected system should not do the damage to other systems. It seems like if we find any person is a COVID, we isolate a person immediately from the family. So he will move to one room. So after incident has been identified and confirmed, the most important part is we do the detailed assessment. We contact the system owner and we isolate a system immediately from the network. And here we notifying the appropriate stakeholders also before you isolating any. Definitely we need to obtain the agreement on actions because it can affect the availability. We have to get the IT representative. We have to obtain and preserve the evidence, and forensic activity happen in the containment stage. Then we have a eradication where we remove the virus. We remove the things which is basically creating a cause. So we determine the sign and cause of an incident. We locate the most recent version of backups. We remove all the root cause. Okay, we remove the virus and everything. And then we restore the system back to the production. Now listen carefully here. With the business owner, we agree in 4 hours we restore. So with the following that matrix, we have to make sure we have to restore that only. So here we also follow the BIA. Okay, BIA, business impact analysis. And finally, we have a lesson learned. Lesson learned mean we should learn lesson from every incident, which help me to improve the overall process. Example, like in this incident, the people has reported an incident late night and that time there is no team force available. So thankfully now, if any incident has been reported, so we got to know, okay, we need to hire one person which work in the evening shift, which helped me to overall improve my incident management program. So at the end of the incident response process, a report should be developed to share with what has happened. Okay, what measures has been taken. The result after the plan was executed as a part of a report. So the part of a report should contain the lesson learned that provide the IMT and other stakeholders valuable learning point and what could have been done better. And these lessons should be developed into plan to enhance the incident management capability. So we write the incident reports, we analyze the issues which is encountered during the incident response plan, and we also propose the improvement based on the issues that we encounter. So that something is done in the phase. So answer is creating a policy, everything part of preparation. Identify the incident is a part of identification. Confirm the incident is part of identification. Isolate a system from the network, part of containment. Remove the virus from a system, part of eradication. Then we have a recovery. We restore the system back to the production. And then we have an overall lesson. What is the lesson we have learned? One more important thing, containment is a temporary, recovery is a permanent. That's something we have to understand. Now, next important thing is element of incident response plan. So from a CISM context, CISM should ensure the containment strategy defined in advance and communicate effectively to mitigate incident. And incident reviews are crucial for continuous improvement. So we have to make sure we enable the CISM to enhance the security controls and refine the response strategy. And by doing the post review and all that, we can able to improve the overall function. So we have to maintain some documents. Okay. Accurate record of incident is unfold. So it's very useful because with the help of that, you can have a clear timelines, which help you to identify root cause, why this happened, how this happened. Undocumented changes may introduce new risk. Okay. And we have to make sure we preserve the evidence, which required the unbroken chain of custody. Chain of custody means the sequence in which you maintain the evidence. So let's say example, Prab is the one who collected the evidence at 7:40. And I hand over the evidence to Smita at 9:30. Smita hand over the evidence to Seema at 10. So we maintain one form in which we document the timeline and along with the hash value. Like at 7 a.m. when I collected the evidence, the hash value was at 7. When I hand over the evidence to Smita, the hash value was at 7. When Smita hand over the evidence to Seema, the hash value was 9B. It means during a transit of Seema to Smita or Smita to Smriti to Seema, the evidence got altered. So when you submit the evidence in the code, you have to submit the chain of custody form. That's why I say whenever possible, use standardization format, which is easy to understand. Lesson learned during an incident can be improve the security practice and take time to review what happened. So according to that, we can able to improve the functions. Another important thing we use is forensic investigation. It's a very important part. Okay. Forensics is very important. So important consideration of incident response team is forensics, which refer to gathering of evidence. But the question is how to gather the evidence. So we follow one concept which is called bit by bit image of the system. How? So we have a system A and here we have a hacker. Hacker basically hack into system. We isolate a system. So first thing what we did the ghost image. Okay. So we did the ghost image. When we did the ghost image, we did the bit by bit image of the system. So first we dump the memory. Because if you shut down the data, shut down the system, you will lose the data in the memory. So first we dump the memory. Then we create a ghost image of the system. And how to create a ghost image? Bit by bit system. Is it clear? The reason why if you do bit by bit, it can capture the exact state of a system, which capture your deleted files, unallocated clusters and all that. And never ever do the investigation live system. Always do the investigation, the copy of the systems. So if scenarios in which legal action is likely identified, there should be a procedure need to be documented. And more important, incident response team should brainstorm the scenarios and write them into the actions. So always remember, isolate a system from a network first by removing a network cable, dump the memory, and then we make a ghost image, which is called bit by bit image of the system. That something is a practice we have to follow. Now, next important element is called whatever the plan you created, you have to test the plan. Okay. So testing increase the likelihood the plan will work by assessing the technical soundness of the plan. We increase each participant familiarity with the plan. So during a testing, we focus on gap identifications. Okay. We identifying gaps, we verify the assumptions. So example, like when I say testing, the difference between the testing and exercise is testing is checking pass or fail. Exercise is all about realistic activity. If in the plan it is mentioned that the person will get a report in 2 days, we have to test that. Is it working or not? So by doing a testing, we identifying the gap, we verifying the assumptions, we validate the timelines, we determine the effectiveness, and more important, we determine the accuracy. Ultimate goal of testing the plan is to update the plan. Because it's not necessary I will be always available in the company. In my absence, someone should follow the plan blindly. So that's why we say when we have to do the testing should be done on a regular basis or at least annually. So we have a different type of test that we need to understand. So next is basically called as a type of test, because we need to test the plan and it is very important for your preparation. So when you're talking about type of test, the first is called a checklist review. We start with checklist review only. We distribute the checklist, we distribute the document to all the team heads, and we tell them, just check whether your area of section is okay or not. Is it clear? So in the ultimate goal of checklist review is to ensure they are current. Once they say, okay, yes, all steps are okay, then we have a structured walkthrough where the team members physically implement the plan on paper and review each steps. Then we have a simulation test where we prepare the disaster scenario without activating a recovery site. Fire drill is an example of simulation. It has little bit impact. Then we have a parallel test. Parallel test we do on the alternate side, and best site for testing is hot site. Okay, and here the recovery site is brought up, a state of operational readiness, but primary site continue as a normal. And then we have a full interruption test. That's something we do on the production site. So if you take an example here, so this is my primary site and this is my alternate site. Okay. So when you're doing parallel test, we do in parallel test on the alternate sites. How we basically ensure can we able to move services from primary to secondary as early as possible. We verify the RTO can be achieved within an MTD. And once we ensure, okay, this site is okay, then we do the test on the primary site. That is called as a parallel test. Then we do the test on the primary site. That's part of a full interruption test. So ultimate goal is to validate the plan. So testing should start simply and increase gradually as stretching the objective and success criteria. But make sure we should do all these things with a limited impact. That's basically the minimum priority we have. Okay. So that's there. Now, next important thing we need to understand the BCP. BCP is very, very important. Now, before I discuss BCP in detail, let me first discuss the definition. So we have a BCP and we have a DRP. BCP is a plan which talk about how to sustain the business in the case of disaster. And DRP talk about how to recover the IT service in the case of disaster. Let's take an example. This is me. And I'm taking a training from home. And this is you as a customer. Okay, you are in different locations. So we all are connected by the network, internet links. I know for me, the training on weekday is very critical. So we have a training from 7 to 12 and mostly take the training from 7 to 12. So I can use my rest of the day for my activities. So I have to make sure during that time, internet should not be down. Power should not be down. But what happened when I start the session, internet was down, power is down. Thankfully, I have a UPS and I have a redundant ISP connections by which I can continue the operation. But problem is that I know I cannot drive the session for long. So I call my friend and I ask him, is power is there or electricity is there? He said yes. So during a lunch time, I moved to my friend's house and from there I did the session. So all these activities, what I'm doing is DR. Okay, but ultimate goal is what? Sustain the business, continue the business. So BCP is the umbrella and DR is a part of the umbrella. There's a dedicated video I made, okay, on BCP. Do check that. So when you're creating a BCP program, the first step is create a policy. We already discussed. Second step called as a BIA. Definitely in the case of disaster, it is not possible for me to protect everything. So I have to identify what is critical, what is not. Understand BI in this way when we're talking about our old houses. Okay. So where we don't have a generator or UPS concept. So our dad used to say, our mom used to say, okay, beta, or okay, guys, you want to study, right? Huh? So what is a necessary thing in the case of power failure? Papa, I want a fan to be operated and I want a light in the hall. So this is something is critical for me. And according to that, I went to market and buy the UPS for that. And we only give a critical connections to that. So in the case of power failure, only fan and light will work of the hall. Definitely you can't run AC, fridge and everything. So this is how that visibility we get when we do BI. So BIA basically all about what is critical, what is not. So then in the case of disaster, we can able to focus on critical first. So in BIA, we have a 3 metrics: MTD, RTO, RPO. So MTD is all about the acceptable downtime. RTO is the time you take to restore the services. And RPO is the acceptable data loss. Let's say an example is one day what happened, my wife while coming back from her office, she told me, Prab, feeling hungry and make sure in 30 minutes, cook something. So that 30 minutes is the ultimatum for me. Okay, the 30 minutes is the ultimatum for me. Make sure we have to make everything in 30 minutes. So I called Zomato and they said in 20 minutes they will deliver the order. That's my RTO. So maximum tolerable downtime is 30 minutes, because if wife reach home in that 30 minutes, then it's a problem. And then in that case, risk cannot be recovered. So I got to know my stakeholder is coming around 30 minutes. Before that, the service should be there. So that's why we order from Zomato or food aggregator app. The food was available in 20 minutes. And by this way, I can able to demonstrate my kitchen continuity services to my wife. So same thing happened. The server is running. The server is down at 11. MTD we have agreed is 4 hours. So we have a time till 3. But by 2, I was able to restore the service. That is my RTO. A good BCP plan is a one where the RTO should not exceed the MTD. And third part is called as a RPO, recovery point objective. Recovery point objective means acceptable data loss in the case of disaster. So we said the RPO is 2 hours. So 9 a.m. we took the backup. 11 we can take the next backup. At 11:15 the server was down. So when I restore the server 3, the last backup I can restore is 11. And maximum data loss we have agreed is 2 hours. But in this case the loss is 15 minutes. So MTD and RPO set by the business owner. So during a BI, we identify what is critical and all that. And then based on that, we identify preventative control and create a contingency strategy. We go for hot site, cold site, warm site. And then we get an approval from the management on that. We then create DR plan, we test the plan, and then we update the plan. So that's how the BIA works. Now another important thing we talk about here is purpose of BIA. BIA identify critical assets, determine the impact on disruption, and set the RTO. So key element is identify functions and dependencies and determine the required recovery time to data loss and tolerance. So from CISM context, BI findings helps to CISM to align the incident response also and business continuity need, because based on a BIA, we can able to prioritize the recovery based on the criticality. DR is a plan that we create. So DR is all about recovery strategy. We develop the detailed recovery plan, which cover the logistics roles and contact informations. And site selection, cost, location, recovery need is a very important part. But the most important part is risk tolerance. Next important thing, as a CISM, okay, are responsible for ensure the DR plan are aligned with the business need and make sure it should be periodically tested for the effectiveness. So we have a different type of DR site. The first is called as a hot site. Now what is hot site? So let me explain with the example. So we have a site 1 and we have a site 2. Okay, site 2. Okay, so hot site mean active passive. So site 1 has a people, process, technology, has a data, but site 2 have people, process, technology, but partial data. Currently everything is happening from the site 1. Everything is happening from a site 1. If site is down, we can move the recent data to site 2 and from there we can continue the operation. That is my hot site. Okay. Second is called as a mirror site. Mirror site means active. If site 1 is down, continue from site 2. That's called mirror site. Warm site is basically mean we have HVAC systems. We have a rack. In the case of disaster, we have to move server and make it as an operational. That is called as a warm site. Okay. And then we have a cold site. We have nothing. Nothing. We have to move everything there, and that is basically called as a cold site. Okay. And finally, we have a mobile site, portable site. You can move from one location to other location. I'm sure you have seen the big trucks in which we have a data center, which can be moved from one location to other locations. So that's something we are using. Hope it is clear to everyone. Now, next important part we need to understand is that whatever the plan we're creating, we have to test that. So role-based training should be done. Testing type can be tabletop, simulations we do, and we check the RTO, KPIs, metrics to check the thing. So regular training, okay, regular trainings ensure the readiness in helping the CISM to gauge the incident maturity and justify the continuous support. Okay. The next thing is called as a RTO. As I said, maximum acceptable downtime. MTO, longest time system can be unavailable, and SDO is a level of service needed during a recovery. So let me explain you with the examples so you get a better visibility, because I've seen a lot of people struggle on this area. I always use Vent's diagram. It's a Vent's website, Ventzu, and he's one of my good friends. So I'm using his reference here. So here what happened, your system is working. In every 2 hours, we're taking a backup. And suddenly there was a disruption. Now I'm able to trying to restore, but I'm able to restore some of the service, which is a 60%. 60% service I was able to restore, and with that I can continue my business. That is my SDO, service delivery objective. Okay, you can see now that if there is a power failure happen, it came back, but it came in phases. It cannot run anything. It cannot run everything. So we can run some basic things. So that acceptable things is called as a SDO, service delivery objective. With that, I can continue my operations. And then at one point in time, I restore everything. So from the downtime till the full restoration, that time is called as a AIW. Okay, but the time till acceptable SDO, that is by parameter I'm talking about the downtime. And from the RTO to the full recovery, that is called as a MTO. MTO stands for maximum tolerable outage. Okay, and overall downtime that we agreed was AIW. And then I restore the functions. The same thing what we discussed. So I repeat again. The service was down. I was able to restore the services. And that acceptable services, I basically 60%, with that I can run my business, and that is my SDO, service delivery objectives. And with that I can continue my operations on the alternate site. Before that I have to restore. If I don't restore after this, it's a problem. And I restore at this point. That is basically called as a recovered. And from the downtime till the downtime, this is called my AIW. Okay, that's how it basically we plan. So as I said, we are using this particular matrix to validate the functions. Okay. We also use another important thing called IOC and IOA. IOA is called like list of attacks happening on my network. Like this attack is coming from 1.1.1 that has been recorded in the firewall. That is called as a IOA, but same IP was recorded and confirmed in one of my system logs. That is called IOC. So IOA before attack and IOC is basically after the attack as an evidence. So we are using this matrix, okay, to measure the effectiveness and everything. That is something part of the program. Like relatives are coming to the house is IOA, but based on that they confirm the marriage proposal and you got married, that's IOC. And so your cousins got this opportunity, they leave the place. So understanding these metrics allows CISM to set the realistic expectation, measure the incident impact, and maintain the continuous improvement. So forensics is very important. We have to ensure the data integrity during incident investigation. Collection is a very important step. Notify the legal regulatory before doing any investigations. Okay, that's a very important part. Documentation is important in the entire incident management process because it provides the audit trails for incident handling, and it also supports the lesson learned. And it's very important you should summarize the incident from management highlights and everything. That's a well-maintained documentation. Reports justify the incident response investment, and it also helps to communicate the incident insights to the management and stakeholders. That's why documentation is very important. Okay, it's actually very important. Now, it's very important to have a risk management with incident handling. So incidents are unpreventative risk that materialize, and handle should focus on containing risk without escalation. So it's very important you have to integrate with the assurance. So you have to link the incident management with the other risk assurance function for the comprehensive risk coverage. So according to that, you can able to take the calls. And that is why incident management is a component of overall risk management, because the risk that is identified, mitigated and all that, the residual risk need to be tracked properly. Is it clear? So residual risk is a risk which is left after implementing control. So we have to monitor the residual risk should not exceed. Okay, see, earthquake is part of my risk residual, but if it occur, we need to have an incident response plan. So we have to make sure the incident management process should be aligned with the enterprise goals. That's the one thing. If it's aligned, then only we have a buy-in approval from the senior management. So as an incident management should not only mitigate risk, but also enhance the organization resilience and require the CISM professional to communicate its strategic importance to the leadership skills. Okay, so I want to show you one diagram. Okay, so here you can see we have an incident risk management where we identify, analyze and develop the mitigation plan. And we decided, okay, we need to monitor some residual risk. Okay, and for that we introduce a BCP plan. We monitor BCP update because any trigger happen, we need a BCP plan. Or any issue happen with that residual risk, we have an incident management plan, triage the incident response and recovery. That's how this correlation basically works. Okay. So it's very important how you validate each and everything. So next is called as a review and process. Okay. So conduct the formal review after incidents to identify the improvements and track the incident response time, cause of incidents, success rate. That's a very important part, because continuous improvement is a very important part of the functions, because by doing a continuous improvement, you can enable to refine the response strategy, reduce the incident impact, and also demonstrate the value to the incident management team. So this is all from my side, but before I want to wind up, I want to tell you one thing, some important things. First, your role as a manager, your role is not to implement anything. You will get 240 minutes to answer 150 questions. So time is not an enemy. Go for 50 questions, 50 minutes, 10 minutes break, 50 questions, 50 minutes, 50 questions, 50 minutes. So in 150 minutes, sorry, in 60, in 180 minutes, you complete the 150 questions. So now you're left with another 60 minutes. That 60 minutes you can take to review your weak areas. Time is not an enemy. Read the question carefully, eliminate 2 options, and then focus your energy in other 2 options. That's basically the beauty about this exam. Do let me know how do you find this special video, and it's an effort and investments which I do for my students, and it is a free. And I will wait for your feedback, and do let me know in the comment box, shall I make a video on CISA and C-risk in a same format? Thank you so much. Good day. Bye.